Chapter 42-41. The speed was so fast that no one could react in time. That bloody bone had already appeared beside Yiqing Luo. Be careful. Yan Xiaoyi's fingers clenched tightly. A huge black sickle blade appeared in her palm. She slashed forward without any hesitation, blocking Yiqing Luo's front. Bam! The blood bone and the black sickle blade collided. It gave off an earth-shattering profound wave. Woo! Yan Xiaoyi was directly sent flying by this powerful force. The black sickle blade in her hand was stabbed into the ground. Xiaoyi! Seeing Yan Xiaoyi being sent flying, Qiao Jin cried out sharply as he speedily moved his body and pounced forward. Stretching out his hand, he caught hold of her firmly and locked her in his arms. Qiao Jin lowered his head and saw the person in his arms with blood oozing out from the corner of her mouth. A sharp golden light flashed past his eyes. He stared furiously at Bloodbone Barbarian King as he clenched his fists tightly. The two figures gradually distanced as they walked out of the Gu residence. Huangfu two figures silently appeared at the place where Yiqing Luo Barbarian King were standing towards Qiao Jin as a smile flashed past his eyes. One was tall and straight like a mountain. The other smile had no profound meaning. The lady was filled with a gloomy and cold aura. Gui, why must Bone Lord pamper such a lady? When he was targeted other than having a face which is still passable, which part of his entire body was filled with an extremely uncomfortable feeling. The man who was addressed as Gui berated sternly with a solemn expression. Which had been targeted. Bone Lord naturally has his own reasons for choosing her, and it's not up to us to make irresponsible remarks. Qiao Jin didn't understand the meaning of Bloodbone Barbarian King's smile. The lady's eyes turned red from the beratingness of Bloodbone Barbarian King. We can obviously follow Bone Lord to do things, but it's Bone Lord who arranged. Her footwork moved as she pulled Qiao Jin such a weak lady behind her. Enough. Her fingers gripped the glower flame fan tightly as she blocked Bloodbone Barbarian King's gaze towards Qiao Jin. Saying that, his figure swayed as he disappeared into was a supreme god in the god realm. The lady pouted her lips as she snorted indignantly. Bloodbone Barbarian King's opponent. Why are you showing me that face? Don't worry. As long as you follow me obediently, I will not touch them. She was still very quick as she caught up to the man's King's head swayed as his eyes shifted onto Yiqing Luo, who had already left the Gu residence, had totally not she pursed her lips tightly and didn't respond. Her attention was attracted by the prosperous scene in front of her. Who was nestled in Qiao Jin's arms suddenly tugged the upper realm's middle-level realm. Yiqing Luo, don't think of compromising no matter if it was the street vendors or the passers-by. Yiqing Luo's weakness was that she was too sentimental and profound energy. These cultivators could be randomly picked out the same way she did when she was facing Bai Mei. They were all legends who were worshipped like gods. He chose to put himself in danger. Guyun followed behind her, at that not time, leaving her by they were hung on the cliff and had no way to stop Yiqing Luo. When they saw Guyun, now they were all standing here, took a detour. Rather than saying he's in need of the ability to shine feels that how could he possibly like Yiqing Luo naturally became away by that Guyun didn't hear the uneasiness in Yiqing Luo was just about to open her mouth back to the Gu residence. Suddenly, that Netherworld Phoenix ring on his finger felt a burning sensation. In the entire Barbarian King's eyes lit up how to make up her identity. He looked down at his fingers. He had created such a persona. When I heard the news of Lord Bone Lord with the flickering, I thought it was fake, but I didn't expect. The profound Phoenix ring was reacting more or less able to the persona of it was Xian. The passers-by were all uncontrollable smiles surfaced on all sorts of discussions went past Yiqing Luo's. She had to call the Bloodbone Barbarian King down. Her face was shocked by Yiqing Luo's stopped and turned his head to look at Guyun. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath with a dark expression to accept the niece persona. When did she become the niece of the barbaric Bloodbone? Xian had already rushed over. She was still wondering why Xian had already still be able to use her connections to intimidate others. The Bloodbone Barbarian King had announced that she was his niece. Yiqing Luo's words had just ended. Eldest Miss had lost her parents at a young age. Bloodbone King's definitely all eldest Miss in the dark to take care of Yiqing Luo could only pretend not to see it. Wave stirred up a monstrous wave. Many of the cultivators were not only curious about her identity, instantly felt stuffy as the relaxed expression she had a breathtakingly beautiful face and the glower flame fan swiftly opened up as a wave of air swept past. There were at least 100 over cultivators following behind Yiqing Luo's Chapter 42-42. Some were in admiration at the instance when the energy was released. Some were in discussion. Very quickly, another burst of profound wave charged downwards as it collided with her. No matter how curious they were, Barbaric King's attack was obviously much 5 steps away from Yiqing Luo. The powerful, terrifying tranquility didn't represent true tranquility. Damn it. Based on Yiqing Luo's vivacious barbaric physique, king must have sensed that DMO Xian was rushing over. As expected. So at the last minute, just when the surroundings were in a state of chaos, a shrill and resentful little voice was heard. Get out of the way. Gave a shrill princess would like to immediately leapt up and somersaulted suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Xian Gui gave an earth-shattering when the cultivators heard this voice, its front claws slammed onto the ground, their bodies aside. The expressions on their faces were very all over the ground like a raging storm. When Guyan heard this voice, at the same time, she couldn't help but mutter softly. Petite figure landed stably on Qi Yan's back. Her footsteps also speedily turned into a fiery afterimage as it blocking her figure. Yiqing Gui's huge body was like a towering mountain as it obviously slender but resolutely blocked in front of her back figure. The strange emotions raised their heads as they looked towards the horizon at that fiery very quickly, the crowd dispersed to the two sides. They were encircled by Yiqing Luo's protection. A 15 or 16-year-old the sky was already covered by a fiery elegant and confident steps. Qi Yan's phoenix feathers which were overflowing like a high and mighty sparkling with a cold looking down on all living beings, as though it had been burnt by the raging flames. The lady was dressed in a luxurious dress, sharp with a bouquet of flowers. The sharp there were several layers of the raging flames which could burn everything in the world as making her every step look like a barbaric king's head. Until the lady stopped in front of each fan and her hands opened up elegantly. The distance between the two of them was just silver threads were like a fairy scattering flowers. The lady gave an shot out in all directions as it wound around the intertwining slightly sinister and distorted. Blood-bone barbaric king's eyes were bloodshot as he looked at Yiqing Luo and vermilion birds cooperation as he sneered. Just one look. Overestimating your own capabilities. The lady's eyes overflowed with jealousy. The blood bones shrunk. But very quickly, she laughed coldly. Gotcha. Sounds were heard as the blood bones formed a solid shield as it blocked in front of his head. That tone was full of disdain. Sharp claws grabbed onto those blood bones. Squinted her eyes slightly, but then the blood bones were all broken. The woman was silent for a long time, blood started but she did not get a response. Qi Yan gave a shrill cry immediately spread its wings and flew into the sky. Bone Lord's niece only has this much capability. Yiqing Luo used the silver threads to wrap around the blood bones, and at this instance, it seemed like a bone raised her brows as she replied in a good mood. Yiqing Luo's silver threads The woman clenched her fists tightly, that blood and her knuckles turned into a sharp blade as it covered the sky and pierced towards Yiqing Luo. She rebuked angrily as her face revealed a ferocious expression. Yiqing Luo lowered her head and looked at the thick blood on palm directly towards Yiqing Luo's skull. Her face turned green, although Yiqing Luo had lost her profound energy. The barbaric blood-bone king was too sinister, but his body retained the habit of fighting and being corroded by the blood of the blood-bone barbarian that the woman raised her palm, the cries of the scarlet flame did not stop, and the flapping of its wings was extremely fast. The dense, profound energy that was released from the lady's body swayed uncontrollably, but she couldn't dodge. In the face of the blood-bone barbarian practitioners who were watching the show and the surroundings watched with folded arms and only cared about watching the show. A piece of blood bone struck Yiqing Luo's back. He did not think that Bone Lord's niece was not a profound practitioner. Yiqing Luo's body tumbled down. All of them had the intention to probe Yiqing Luo. Scarlet flame was exposed to the sharp blood bones. It was extremely common for people to fight in public. Qi Yan let out a cry, especially when it was nearing the critical juncture of the chart. The sky was filled with blood powerhouses, large clans. There was no place for Scarlet Flame to hide. Had all sent out their most outstanding geniuses. The densely packed bloody bones completely sealed the entire old city. At least 80% of the geniuses were gathered. The world group's youngsters who were blocked by Xian Gui's protective shield all had bloodshot eyes and they would start fighting. Rage. Their eyes widened. He looked at the sky in disbelief. Chapter 42:57. It was totally unbelievable. In the air, the sound of the profound wave vermilion was like a surging wave in Yiqing Luo's ears. Was swallowed by the blood bones. She could obviously sense the energy coming towards her. Luo, who was struck by the blood bones, wanted to avoid it. As she looked at the dangerous scene in the sky, her pale face started to break out in cold sweat. There was no fluctuation of profound energy in her body. How could ordinary people avoid? Profound cultivators Chapter 42:43. Her thoughts were whirling. Fortunately, the incoming palm wind was like a hot knife. She used all her strength rushing over with the speed of light back into the pet space. Bam! She felt the scarlet flames. There was an explosion of vibrations. The slender figure in front of him easily grabbed the arm of the person who was approaching. But following that, a new problem. 5 slender fingers, but it had an irresistible pressure. Under the violent impact of the blood bone earlier, she just used one hand to block the lady's attack. 6 bowels felt as if they had been shattered. Effortlessly. In addition, during the thrilling moment, all her mental power was concentrated on summoning the vermilion bird, as though she couldn't wait to skin her alive. Yi-Ching Luo only felt her chest move at all as she tightened her grip on the lady's wrist. Her figure swayed and fell straight down. Under orders to protect eldest young Miss. Just at this moment, no one is allowed to hurt a single strand of eldest young Miss's hair. Her waist suddenly tightened. Niece. Then she should bring out her ability and prove her ability in front of everyone, so that everyone will be convinced, petite body, isn't it, was brought into a broad embrace. The lady was filled with righteous indignation. Purple flowing cloud long robe fluttered. She was treated like this by a maid in front of so many people, fluttering. She had lost her dignity as a member of the royal family. Seeped into the nose, wrapping her face turned red and she angrily rebuked. You offended me like this. It also washed away Yi-Ching Luo's cold and austere. Guyun remained after touching that she wasn't threatened by her at all. The young lady's tense words are different. Also softened. Eldest young Miss is Bone Lord's niece and also someone whom Bone Lord has acknowledged. The young lady nestled in the man's arms. Even if she doesn't have the ability, circled the man's she's still neck. Bone Lord's niece. Looking up. No one collided with that black is allowed to bully and humiliate her. The man's eyes were flustered, anxious, slightly as and her gaze turned cold as she stared at the lady in front of her, were all displayed in front of Yi-Ching Luo, including her heart. Princess suddenly softened. The lady's expression instantly turned steely green as her eyes were filled with the venomous eyes. She struggled, trying to break free from Guyun's hand. Lil Luo, but she was held tightly by Guyun, looking at the young lady's totally unable to break free. DMO she was flustered as she felt as if it was pierced by a needle. Don't get carried away just because you're the maidservant in charge of the two residents. Into his arms. No matter how high your status is, he absorbed her fragrance. Servant. His restless words made Guyun's expression change slightly. All he wanted to do was to hug Yi-Ching Luo tightly, feeling her warmth by his side. You don't have to worry about me. He only wanted to hug Yi-Ching Luo tightly. This servant will naturally report today's matter to Bone Monarch and personally apologize to him. He couldn't imagine what kind of mood he had when he found out that Yi-Ching Luo was missing, looking for her. He also couldn't imagine. The lady was infuriated, but she was unable to struggle free from Guyun, so she could only use her eyes to stare fiercely at Yi-Ching Luo. Ah, Xian, sorry. As Bone Lord's niece, sorry. You're such a waste. Yi-Ching Luo could feel the man's emitting disgrace to the Bone residents. She wrapped her arms around the man and pressed her head against his chest. Raised her brows slightly. It was her who had made DMO her long and narrow eyes were half closed. DMO Xian hugged her head and bent down to plant a kiss on her forehead. This only served to further accentuate her alluring beauty. There was a smile on his face. Towards the lady's indignant words, that you're fine. Yi-Ching Luo didn't bother much about it. She returned to his side. Her focus was on Guyun. The barbaric blood bone king stared coldly at the two people who were embracing each other, made her move. There wasn't the slightest change in his expression because of the majestic and powerful profound wave energy. His gaze was piercingly cold, even if she hadn't like lost her profound strength. As it fell onto Yi-Ching Luo, it would be difficult for them to even put up a fight. Sneer came from his nose. However, Guyun easily subdued him. The blood bones surged with dark force. He didn't give his opponent any chance to retaliate, rolling up wave after wave of huge waves. Has unfathomable strength and is very mysterious. Without any hesitation, such a powerful person was actually just a maidservant in the Gu residence direction. And she even tried her best to take care of her and was extremely respectful. Luo's waist as his sleeves fluttered. Yi-Ching Luo suddenly felt his sleeves were rolling like purple flowing clouds. Was it really good for her to waste a big shot like this? They vibrated with a vast profound wave and collided with the blood-bone barbaric king's profound wave. Chapter 42:58. After the two collided, the clamor and the atmosphere immediately attracted the attention of many people in the surroundings. The entire space began to collapse. Someone saw an exclusive scarlet blood BMW outside the crowd. Huge rocks started to fall downwards. It's actually the Princess started to crack, forming large cracks. Who provoked Princess Xiaozhu? With Xian Gui protecting the world group, does she not want her life anymore? Wasn't worried at all. I heard that it seems to be the niece that Lord Bone Lord brought back. Chapter 42:44. Lord Bone When the two forces collided with each other, how did these two people get into a fight? She who was at a close distance could acutely feel the surging airwaves. Princess Xiaozhu had always been the most respected lady in the old city. Before she could think carefully, now that Lord Bone Lord's niece entered the city and replaced her position, appeared in front of him. How could Princess Xiaozhu not be angry? The sticky and cold-bloody bones touched her body. This is the era of competing for background. Her hand flipped, attempting to shake off the blood. Not as good as Lord Bone Lord's niece, when she released her profound she can only give up her position. Yi-Ching Luo the felt surrounding that the blood bones seemed to have a kind of suction force, were discussing happily, sucking her arm in. That Lord Bone Lord's touch made Yi-Ching Luo's without any profound energy. She wanted to struggle.
Earlier when Princess Xia
but
Zhu
on that
made her
blood
move,
bone,
it
a
was
thin layer
missing from
of
the
blood
blue
beads
residents
spread,
who helped her to block
starting
it.
from her arm.
Waist,
The smile on his face,
it can't be,
which was so close to hers,
how could a waist
grew
come to the
colder
heaven
and
realm?
colder.
Lord
DMO
Lord is so
Xian
powerful.
also realized
How could the
something was
lady that he
wrong.
personally brought back be
He
a waist?
swiftly hooked the young lady's waist,
Instantly,
chopping
the
off
public
the blood
opinion
bone
took a
covering
turn.
the young lady's arm.
On the basis of the three outer
thick,
layers,
sticky blood
another
was
3
like
layers
a crystal
were
clear
added.
ornament,
All
enveloping
of them
Yi
wanted to see
Qingluo's
what was the
entire
disparity
arm.
between the most respected
If
number
DMO
one lady in
Xian
the
made
old
a
city
move,
and the newly appointed number
he would
one
definitely
lady.
hurt Yi Qingluo.
Yi Qingluo more or
Lil
less heard the
Luo,
surrounding people's discussions.
DMO Xian's
and
pupils
more or less
contracted
understood
as
the
he
reason
grabbed
why
the
the
young
lady
lady's
in front of
arm,
her suddenly
stretching
went
it
up to
out.
find fault.
That blood
It
bone
was merely
was
because
like
she was
showing
used to
off,
being arrogant
swaying
and couldn't
on
accept
Yi
the lady
Qingluo's
who
arm.
appeared out of nowhere and
The
snatched
thick
away the
blood
glory
was
that
flowing
belonged to
along
her.
with it.
No matter
Other
if
than
it
the
was
sticky
the lower
coldness,
realm or the
which gave her
heaven realm.
goosebumps.
Power and
Yi
status were
Qingluo
what the
didn't feel
cultivators
anything
pursued
else.
and yearned for.
But DMO
Eldest
Xian's
Miss,
eyes
I'm
were scarlet
sorry,
red.
I'll settle
The surrounding
Princess Xia
terrifying
Zhu
aura
immediately
dispersed
and won't
majestically.
disturb your mood.
Bit by bit,
Guyun
it
held
spread to the
Princess
entire
Xia Zhu
space
as she spoke to Yi Qingluo
His purple
warmly.
robe fluttered along with the
Settle.
strong wind.
These two words were a little
Yi
insulting to this
Qingluo
high
was just
and
about
mighty
to
princess.
open her mouth to appease the man's
As expected,
emotions.
after hearing Gu
Her
Yun's
peripheral
words,
vision suddenly fell
Princess
behind DMO
Xia Zhu
Xian.
was so angry that her face
pupils
flushed
contracted,
red,
green
as she
and
cried
white.
out
Gu
in
Yun,
alarm,
be
"If you dare
careful."
to offend your superior,
She was just
I will
about to
immediately
open her
get someone
glowing
to kill you."
fan, blocking Yi
Gu Yun's
Qingluo's
face was
outstretched
expressionless,
hand,
showing no
but
signs
her
of
wrist
fear.
moved.
A
It was
cold
a
light
piercing
flashed
pain.
across Princess Xia Zhu's
That blood
eyes.
bone
Seemed to have
She
pierced into
glanced
her
at the
bones,
crowd and was about to speak when
making
she heard
her
a
unable
clear
to
and
muster
sweet
up any
voice.
strength at all.
Gu Yun,
It was
let
too
her go.
late. It
Yi
was the niece of the
Qingluo's
bone
breathing
lord.
paused,
As she quickly
Princess
grabbed
Xia
DMO
Zhu's
Xian's
pupils
body,
contracted as she
trying to
stared
change
fiercely
direction,
at Yi Qingluo.
blocking in front of him. Gu Yun was slightly
But
stunned as she looked at
the
Yi
moment Yi
Qingluo in
Qingluo
puzzlement.
made a sound,
DMO Xian had already clasped her
curled into
petite
a
body
sweet
tightly,
smile,
pressing her
place
firmly
with a
into
strong
his
or
embrace.
respected.
If you don't have
The
the
sharp
ability,
blood bone
you will
pierced
indeed
straight
be
into
doubted by
DMO
others.
Xian's back.
Especially,
She did not know whether it was
for
the blood on the
Princess
bone or
Xia
DMO
Zhu's
Xian's
she's a
blood
heaven's
that oozed
pride,
out.
a powerful person.
In an instant,
The
as she
luxurious
spoke,
purple robe
she
was
deliberately
covered with a dark
emphasized the
shade.
word powerful.
Ah Xian. His gaze swept over
Yi
her arm,
Qingluo's
which
pupils
was dilated
dilated
as she felt the man
in a
who was
mocking
hugging
manner.
her. His
His tone
tongue was
slightly
filled with
pressed
obvious
against her
mockery,
and her eyes turned red.
But Princess Xia
She
Zhu
wanted to
apparently
reach
didn't
out
hear
and
Yi
hug the man.
Qingluo's implied meaning.
However,
His arm,
hearing Yi
which was stuck to the
Qingluo
blood
praising
bone,
him,
was
his face
unable to
immediately
move freely.
revealed a complacent expression.
He tried to
Of
force
course.
himself to move. Ever since I was
It was a
young,
heart-wrenching
I was known as
pain.
the genius child of the
Shameless,
old city.
barbaric blood bone king.
I've devoted myself to
He knew
cultivation
that
and
the two
spent
of them
so much
valued
effort
each
to get
other.
to where I am today.
So he
The
intentionally
people around
hurt
them
her to
couldn't
attract
help but burst
DMO
into
Xian's
laughter.
attention.
Genius
She had
child.
angered DMO Xian and he
Devoted
had
herself
placed
to
all his
cultivation.
attention on her. And then take the chance to lay hands on DMO Xian. Chapter 42-59.
The barbaric blood bone
It was simply
king was
too
well aware of
embarrassing.
this. But after the
DMO
laughter,
Xian would reveal his
everyone
back for
turned
her.
their faces away and
She
pretended
looked
to
at
be
the dark
serious,
marks on the man's
not letting
back.
Princess Xia Zhu
Yi
find out.
Qingluo's eyes seemed to be
After
sealed
all,
with a layer
the other
of
party
frost.
was Princess Xia Zhu.
She clenched her teeth,
They
as
still
though
wanted
she had
to
made
live
up her
on.
mind.
Between the
She
two
looked
of them,
down at her
no
own
one
arm,
could be offended,
which was stuck to the blood bone.
Just let them
totally
be quiet
unable
and
to move.
expressionless onlookers. Her eyes turned
Towards
sharp.
the sudden laughter of the crowd,
She raised one
the sudden
hand and turned it into a
seriousness.
sharp ray,
Princess
chopping downwards.
Xia Zhu indeed didn't notice
Lil
the deep
Luo,
meaning behind it as
what are
all
you
her
doing?
thoughts were placed on Yi Qingluo.
This action shocked DMO
Eldest
Xian as he
Miss.
shouted out sharply,
Gu Yun
raising
revealed
his
a
hand to
difficult
grab Yi
expression as she
Qingluo's
glanced
raised
at
hand.
Princess Xia Zhu hesitantly.
Chapter
Yi Qingluo's lips
42-45.
curled as she smiled at her.
Yi
No matter.
Qingluo pursed her lips
Gu
tightly.
Yun pursed her lips and finally
Her eyes
listened
were
to Yi
bloodshot
Qingluo's
red.
command as she let go
She
of
didn't
Princess
want it to be
Xia
like
Zhu
this,
and turned around to return
but
to
the
Yi
blood-bone
Qingluo's
barbaric
side.
king obviously wanted
At the
to
same
use the
time,
blood bones to
Princess
control
Xia
her.
Zhu's eyes turned
She
cold
hadn't
as a
forgotten
sinister
until
gaze
now
flashed past.
how the Linglong Palace
moment
Lord
Gu
was
Yun let
swallowed
go
by
of her
these
and
blood
turned
bones.
around.
She
Boundless
didn't want
profound
DMO
rage
Xian
gathered
to
on
have
both
any
palms
misgivings
as it
because
struck
of
down
this.
towards Gu Yun's back.
The man's breathing was getting
careful.
heavier by the minute.
The moment Princess Xia Zhu
Apparently
made
it
her
was
move.
because of the blood
blood bone that had pierced into his body. Noticed her actions. What was scary was not the blood bone. She grabbed Gu Yun with one hand blood on the blood her over. The other hand drew out a dazzling red ray. If it entered a human's body, the sound of the palms colliding what would happen. Gu Yun's reaction was swift as she quickly grabbed Yi Qing Luo tightly and blocked the blood on the range of the profound wave. His flesh was corroded. When she turned
Thinking
back,
of the red flame, the blood on the blood
look of
bone,
astonishment
the corroded
surfaced on her
sharp
face.
claws.
Only to see the
Luo's
place where
heart
she was
was in a
standing
mess.
earlier. She
The
suppressed
profound
the panic in her
waves
heart and
continued
called
to
out
expand as it
DMO
spread
Xian's
in all
name
directions.
softly. While
But
feeding the pill into his
it
mouth,
was stopped in midair as
but
it
the
was unable
blood-bone
to
barbaric
attack
king
towards their
obviously
direction no
didn't
matter
give them a
what.
chance to breathe.
Taking a closer look,
After seeing DMO Xian
Guyan
was
saw
hurt,
in
he
that
laughed
profound
sinisterly.
wave.
Immediately,
a feather fan
a drove
which
the
was like a
densely
raging
packed
flame
blood
went
bones
against that profound wave
to crazily entangle.
It actually forced that
The
profound
blood-bone
wave to
barbaric
retreat.
king's target had always
Feather
been very
fan.
firm.
What?
Yiqing Luo only
Was
felt that
that?
the blood bone on her arm
It
was
seemed
like
that
a
it
big
was thrown
mouth,
out from eldest
biting her
Mrs.
hand
hands.
tightly. Just at
She
this
cried
moment,
out in pain.
the profound
Her
wave
body
was
was
forced to
suddenly
retreat.
pulled. That
The
feather
other arm,
fan
which was
also
clasped
fell
in
from
DMO
midair.
Xian's palm, slipped
Lower
from the
flame
man's
fan.
hand.
DMO
Yiqing
Xian's
Luo's
opened
eyes
her
were
palm
sharp. He
towards the
wanted to
glower
hold the young
flame
lady's
fan,
hand
but
again.
she who had no profound energy was
Yiqing
unable
Luo's
to
heart
use it
trembled
freely.
and immediately put her hand over to
dong
DMO
sound was
Xian's
heard.
stretched out hand.
The glower flame
But
fan fell onto the ground.
their fingers just brushed
The red
past.
glow flickered for a moment
The
before
densely
disappearing.
packed blood bones were like a woven
There was a
big
strange
net
silence
enveloping
all
the two
around.
of them.
Everyone stared
Separating
at the red
Yiqing
feather
Luo
fan on
and
the ground in
DMO Xian
astonishment.
completely.
Other than the fact
Immediately
that it was made of
following
precious materials,
Yiqing
it was just
Luo's
an
body
ordinary
was
item.
suddenly pulled.
However,
Her
this
back hit the
ordinary
hard
object
blood
had
bone.
actually blocked Princess
She was firmly
Xiaoju's
fixed
all-out
in
attack
place.
just now.
The
Were
sticky
they
cold
seeing
touch
things?
spread all over her body.
Princess Xiaoju was
That
also
head which was
shocked.
embedded in the blood bone,
Glaring at the
followed the
red feather
distinct
fan
joints
on
of
the
the blood
ground,
bone
he
and
felt
slid
as
in
if he
front
was
of
going to
Yiqing
spit
Luo.
fire.
When
Such a
Guyan
close
moved,
distance, she headed towards the
he was so
devouring
close
flame
that he
fan.
could feel the blood-bone barbarian king's cold aura on
Princess
his face.
Xiaoju suddenly
The barbaric
reacted and
blood-bone
shouted
monarch
sternly,
stared straight
snatched
at
the
her
fan
and
back
smiled
from you.
triumphantly.
As soon as
Little
Princess
girl,
Xiaoju finished
in
speaking,
the end, you won't be able to
outside the
escape from my
crowd,
grasp.
5 men in tight clothes
As his
suddenly
words
flew
fell,
out and quickly rushed toward
Yiqing Luo's
Guyan.
intuition told her
The
that
3 of them
horrifying
stopped
face which was
Guyan.
just inches away from
The
her.
2 of them
cracked
quickly
into a
approached the
treacherous
glowing
smile.
flame fan. In the next
Guyan's
instant,
eyes
her vision
turned
turned black.
Profound
His
ripples
mind
surged
suddenly
as she
became
slammed her
blank.
palm towards the person who was
Vaguely,
blocking
they
her.
seemed to hear DMO
She could
Xian's cold
tell
and dignified voice.
the eldest miss attached
She
great
could vaguely
importance to
see
the
a
feather
purple
fan.
figure walking toward her.
Just now,
The
blood
eldest
bone
miss had
barbarian
thrown
king.
out that feather fan in order to save
You
her.
dare to hurt her, even
She
if
would
this
never
Lord
allow
ascends to the
Princess
heavens or
Xiaoju
dives
to
into the
snatch
earth.
eldest
I will
Mrs. Feather
definitely
Fan.
crush your bones and scatter
Thinking
your
of
ashes.
this,
Guyan's expression
DMO
turned even
Xian
colder
clutched
as her
his
5
chest,
fingers
his
clenched
face
tightly.
filled with malevolent rage.
The profound rays
The
suddenly
blood-bone
shook,
barbaric king's eyes
and those
swept
2 men
across
had
the young
already
girl's
rushed
face,
to the side
which
of the
was
glowing
as clean
flame
as a
fan.
baby's. They stretched
Since you
out
know
their
about
hands
this
in that
god's
glowing
matters,
flame
you should
fan.
also know. How could this god bear to hurt her?
DMO Xian's face was solemn and cold. A bloodthirsty
Chapter
murderous
4260.
intent flashed past his eyes.
A fiery
his 5
red
fingers
shadow,
clenched
like
so
a
tightly that a
fireball.
cracking sound could be heard.
Just as that man withdrew
the
his hand,
blood-bone barbarian king
the
sneered.
glower flame fan on the ground
The sky
had
was
already
filled with
disappeared.
blood bones.
Like a
The men
cicada's
quickly
pupa,
looked towards
covering
the direction
Yiqing
of the
Luo's
red
delicate
shadow.
body.
They saw
Immediately
a little
after,
bird,
just
fluttering
like
its
how it
wings,
came,
hanging in its mouth,
quietly
was that
disappeared
red
in front of
feather
everyone's
fan.
eyes.
So,
The black
that
fog
man
which
shrieked
covered the
miserably
sky
and withdrew
gradually
his hand.
dispersed,
Was he pecked
revealing
by
a
this
bright
bird?
light.
The
Damned
moment
bird.
Xian Gui's
The
protective shield
well-dressed
was
men
released,
quickly flew towards the bird.
When that red
Chapter
shadow
4246.
appeared, Yiqing Luo's pupils
However,
suddenly tightened. The only thing
was
they could
Qi
touch
Yan.
was air. When did it
As
fly
though
over
everything
to the glower
earlier was
flame
just
fan?
an illusion.
Yiqing
Everyone's
Luo quickly
eyes were
stepped
red as
forward
their
and
fists
took
were
Qi
clenched
Yan
tightly
into her
by the
arms.
sides,
as their
Qi
chests
Yan
were filled
placed
with
the glower
resentment
flame
and suppression.
fan in
Yiqing Luo's hands
He
and
watched
snorted
helplessly as
coldly.
Yiqing
In the
Luo
end,
was brought away.
I still have to do it,
but
you're
they had
really
no
useless.
way at all.
Yiqing
This
Luo
kind of
rubbed
them.
its fluffy phoenix feathers
What
and
rates
whispered,
did they have to
next
become
time don't
Yiqing
act on
Luo's
your
backing?
own. What if you get
Yiqing Luo's
injured?
backing?
I will get
Overlord.
injured. What
The
a
World
joke.
Group's young man's voice
A
was
human
hoarse
who
as
can
he
injure
placed
me
all
has
his
not been
hopes on
born in this
DMO
world.
Xian.
Madame
Qi
Qing
Yan
Luo
proudly raised
she will
its
be
little
fine,
head.
right?
Yiqing
Just
Luo
as he
pinched
said
its
that.
injured paw.
Wait
Then
till you've recovered.
she was pulled by
then
someone
say this
forcefully.
again. Qi
Stopping
Yan,
the young
this
man
is
from asking
your
any
war
further
pet.
questions.
Princess
Lu
Xiaoju's
Xiaoyu
sharp
pulled him
voice was
back as she suppressed her voice.
Qing
Don't
Luo
poke the
hugged
Overlord's
Qi Yan
heart.
tightly and raised her
Something
eyes
happened
vigilantly.
to Qing Luo. He is
But
more
she saw the
anxious and
surrounding
upset
people,
than any of us,
looking at her with extremely
That's
astonished
right.
and horrified eyes.
In this world,
no one loved their Madame
to be
Qing
more
Luo
precise,
more than the Overlord.
they were staring at.
Even if it was themselves,
Qi Yan in her
they
arms.
couldn't be compared to the Overlord's
Especially
affection.
Princess Xia Zhu's
No,
eyes. It was even more
there was
fiery.
no comparison
Eldest
at all.
young miss. The world group suppressed the turning anxiety and uneasiness in their hearts as they looked at the man who stood speedily returned to Yi-Ching, not moving at all. As she grabbed her arm, even though the man didn't say a word. I forgot to remind eldest young miss. His expression didn't have any change at all. You must never let anyone know that eldest young miss Pet can speak human language. From the man's body, I will escort eldest young miss back to the goo residence as though it was going to envelop the entire world in darkness. Yi-Ching Luo understood. Not knowing how much time had passed, that Qi Yan could talk to her. Yi-Ching Luo slowly opened her eyes in her drowsiness. A war pet that perhaps could speak she had been unconscious for too long. The minute she opened her eyes, there were very few war pets that could speak human language. So much that she couldn't help but shut her eyes tightly. But her glabella started to ache faintly. Vision was already glued to recuperating for some time. Want to leave. She then felt slightly more comfortable as she tried to open her eyes closed in on Yi-Ching Luo. Other than feeling weak and powerless, compared to the feather fan, she didn't feel any other interested in the battle pet that could talk. Her throat was about to emit smoke as she felt extremely uncomfortable and retaliated with a palm strike. She raised her hand and was just about to get up. Both sides took a few steps back. A pair of soft little hands had already held on, stretched out her hand and placed it on Gu Yun's shoulder. Immediately following that was a lady's gentle and respectful voice, patted Gu Yun's shoulder lightly, and shook her head slightly. When her hands were held by that soft little hand, she looked in the direction of Princess Xiao's trembled. Eldest miss, this servant is actually wasn't able to avoid this person's hand earlier. Bone Monarch has already announced my identity. Body stiffened. He will naturally not watch as I am bullied. Eldest young miss, are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere? Bullying me is equivalent to insulting the bone will immediately call the doctor. Yi-Ching Luo explained softly, eyelashes fluttered as she sat up straight with the lady support. She saw a girl in peach-colored clothes standing by the bed. If you want to make someone give up or kill the man, she looked to be about 18 or 19 years old and was looking at her with concern, leaving no room for that person to turn the tables. This was an extremely luxurious room. Do these two things. The furnishings in the room were both noble and elegant. Luo and naturally knew that Yi-Ching Luo had no profound at the woman. This was a place where strength reigned supreme. His mouth, his voice was as hoarse as a sawtooth, who had no profound energy. She coughed violently several times. The lady hurriedly brought a cup of warm water from the side and sent it to Yi-Ching Luo's lips while the young lady was obviously smiling, and her tone was extremely gentle. It's my fault for not taking good care of you. But Gu Yun inexplicably felt the water that entered her mouth was sweet and smooth. In an instant, his dry throat was moisturized and revitalized. Chapter 4261. The lady carefully supported the hand which was blocking in front against the head of the bed, and with a plop sound, she knelt on the ground. She believed in eldest Mississippi, eldest young miss, and believed in Bone Lord's trust towards eldest Mississippi a little as she was baffled by this scene. Princess Xia Zhu's eyes flashed past as her lips curled into a cold arc. Now, the lady carefully raised her eyes and took a look at Yi-Ching Luo. She paused and curled her lips coldly. Seeing that she didn't have any intention to blame, this princess tightly knitted brows, she went forward to massage her head. After killing this so-called eldest miss, the lady's battle pet which could speak human language would belong to her. It made Yi-Ching Luo feel very comfortable. Zhu had no intention to conceal the murderous intent in her eyes. Miss, Servant Gu Yun is the first household's maid who unable to restrain the anxiety on her face. Yi-Ching Luo had a bad premonition. But when she saw Yi-Ching Luo's indifferent expression, she suppressed the urge to rush up. Gu Yun replied but her body warmly, maintained a vigilant posture, Bone Lord, ready to rush up if Yi-Ching Luo's brows thumped as she suddenly opened her eyes and grabbed the two hands which were pressing on her temples. Was a maid who looked to be in her 20s. Blood-bone barbaric king, she should be Princess Xia Zhu's personal maid as she called out to her in a low voice. She carefully looked to the side. Princess Xia Zhu restrained her imposing manner slightly no one else around. She turned her head to look at the maid. In the residence, you must not mention this word. This person cannot be killed. If Bone Lord heard this, even the maid who was addressed might not be able to persuade closer to Princess Xia Zhu's ears. She lowered her voice. The Bone Lord, although the Emperor has the intention to suppress Bone Lord's power, but this can only be done in secret. What was your Highness kills barbaric king trying to do by bringing her to this offending Bone Lord? Eldest Miss, Princess Xia Zhu's expression congealed as the murderous intent about the matters gradually dissipated. But her expression was still gloomy. Doesn't touch Bone Lord's bottom line. He will not bear to punish herself for a moment as she glanced at Yi-Ching Luo from the corner of her eyes. Yi-Ching Luo. This person relies on Bone Lord, the current situation was a little confusing and she needed time to digest it. Your Highness just needs to teach her a lesson. Eldest Miss must be hungry. After this, If Bone
I will
Lord
bring the
blames
porridge
you,
up
Your
immediately.
Highness just need to say that it was
Gu Yun
Eldest Miss
retracted
who
her hand from
insisted on being
Yi-Ching
strong
Luo's.
and initiated to provoke
She
you.
got
up and ran to the outer hall to bring the porridge. Commoners present can all testify. Luo's fingers grabbed. As for Your Highness, she lowered her eyes and looked at her waist and didn't stop in time. The expression on her face was somewhat grave. Princess Xia Zhu's face revealed a complacent smile. Not only could Gu Yun easily hold her hand and patted she could also shoulder lightly. All right, I will do as you say. She could also easily break free from her Immediately, Princess Xia Zhu turned around and looked at Yi-Ching Luo with a sinister smile as her lips curled. She closed her eyes slightly without any explanation. The palm wind surged and struck towards Yi-Ching Luo's face. Her body was empty, without the slightest fluctuation of energy. Yi-Ching Luo only felt that a hurricane was fluctuation of profound wave in her palm. Cold wind brought along a tyrannical force as it came crashing down. Once again. She could feel Princess Xia Zhu's movements. This time, not only was she unable to activate the divine relic. Not far away, even his own pet space could not sense it. The two figures hidden in the dark looked at the scene in front of them hesitantly. She was unable to sense the existence of Old Man Song within the azure dew bracelet. The man's face darkened when he saw Princess Xia Zhu. She was just an ordinary person and there was some disdain in his eyes. Apart from not being able to use profound strength, he still spat on the ground and prepared to charge forward. Apart from being unable to control the profound energy. Still not moving. She had no discomfort anywhere else. However, his arm was pulled back by the lady behind him. Luo's brows creased even tighter. Didn't Eldest Miss vow to prove her strength and make Princess Xia Zhu must be the doing of the barbaric Bloodbone King. Since she's so capable, does he want to need to do anything? Brought her to his territory. The man's body stiffened. He even arranged for a maid to serve him. His gaze fell on the young girl who stood there motionlessly as if she had been scared silly by Princess Xia Zhu's attack. A shrill voice came from the quilt. His expression turned even uglier. The voice was somewhat familiar, if anything happens and the tone was also so familiar that it made people want to beat him up. He said, Yi-Ching Luo. The lady gave a cold snort. A little red head popped out from the bedding. Strength. That sharp mouth the lady chosen by Lord Yi-Ching and she doesn't even have this bit of ability. Useless? The man's gloomy face remained expressionless. Yi-Ching Luo stared at the red bird about the size of 2 palms in front of her, startled. Chapter 42:62. You're here too. To tell the truth, rolled his eyes in a eldest young miss who suddenly appeared. Beast is doing this for you. In the entire Gu residence, other than Gu Yin, no one was willing to accept her wholeheartedly. Her gaze was fixed on its pair of claws, two of them, as secret guards of the Gu residence. They couldn't follow their master to dangerous places to protect their master's safety, but were arranged to stay in the Gu residence to protect the eldest young gently touched Yi Yan's claws. How could they remain even after a long time? He still especially this eldest young miss, who wasn't someone who didn't make others and because of guilt. They arranged to protect eldest young miss because they naturally knew that eldest young miss was a waste without any profound energy. Now you look even uglier. So be it if she was a waste. Flapped its wings. Its tone was full of disgust. Protection. But as it complained, as long as she was safe and stable, she would definitely have a place in this heaven realm. Looked at her. This sacred beast does not still wanted to create trouble. This little injury will kill me. And even provoked Princess Xia Zhu. Although the words were not pleasant to hear. That she was someone. But it was obvious that she could feel it. Changed. The lady's lips curled coldly as she took the opportunity to feel too guilty. No matter how unruly Princess Xia Zhu is, pursed her lips she is after all a member of the royal family, covered so she wouldn't be so silly to really kill eldest young feathers were extremely soft. Why not take this opportunity to teach her a trembling voice, in case she finds out that we are secretly protecting her, and create more trouble unscrupulously. Its long neck. The lady's words had completely hit the bottom little bird into her arms. In the end, her lips were printed on Qi Yan's as their gazes shifted onto Yi-Ching Luo. Qi Yan was stunned and wanted to struggle. In the air, there was extremely low and shallow voice floated down from the top of its head, set up on the streets were overturned because of this riot. Don't worry, the powerful Qi waves I will definitely avenge you. It completely engulfed the young lady who was standing there. No one can. Eldest young miss. Companion. Gu Yun's pupils red eyes were in a trance stared intently at the surging whirlpool. No one had ever treated it as a companion as a sacred beast. She clenched her fists tightly as she speedily dashed forward. Although she was a little ugly, wanting to dash into the whirlpool and bring eldest young miss back. But at the same time, she was its chosen master. The two figures who were hiding in the dark, and after all, swiftly she had her merits. When she saw the two of them, the porridge was only slightly Let me serve you some porridge. As she didn't have any extra thoughts to ask why the two of them were here. walked to the bedside with a jade porcelain bowl. The three of them speedily dashed into the airways. When her gaze fell on Qi Yan, they hadn't even taken a step. Eldest miss, don't worry, the three of them paused. Bone Lord has already treated it as if someone had pressed the pause button. Not a single one of them
frowned
moved.
Slightly.
The three of them had the
claws
same
became
expression.
like this. Wasn't it
Filled
because
with
of
shock
Bloodbone
and
Barbaric
disbelief.
King?
In front of
Bloodbone
them,
Barbaric
profound
King
waves
would
were
treat
surging.
Qian's claws.
A figure that was like a raging flame was
me.
faintly discernible.
Qian's voice
Not
was a
long
little
after,
dull, obviously embarrassed.
The figure was getting closer.
It was also very
The
puzzled.
fiery red dress followed her
Injured
footsteps,
by Bloodbone Barbaric
as if she was
King.
stepping on a fire lotus.
The Bloodbone Barbarian
The
King
girl
had
with a
cured him
luxurious
again.
aura had an extremely
Could this
faint
be
mocking
considered as
smile
giving
on
a
her
sweet
face.
date after a slap in the face?
It's eldest miss.
Eldest Miss, Bone
Eldest
Lord
Miss
still dotes on
was
you.
actually safe and sound
Guyon
under Princess
carried a bowl of
Yaju's
porridge
attack
and
came to the bedside. This is the first
What?
time this
What was
servant has
going
seen
on?
Bone Lord attach
They
so
were
much
not the
importance
only
to
ones who
someone.
were shocked and astonished.
Yiqing Luo stopped
The
Guyon from
onlookers
feeding
were
the
all
spoon to her
dumbfounded by
mouth.
the number 6.
I'll do it myself. Eldest young
Be
miss.
careful, it's hot.
Guyon was the first to
Guyon
react
did not
as she
insist.
swiftly rushed to Yiqing Luo's
Yiqing
side
Luo
and
took
pulled
the
her to
small
size her
bowl
up and looked down at the medicinal
Seeing that
porridge in the
Yiqing
bowl.
Luo
only had some minor
The fragrance
abrasions
was
on her
rich
body.
and extremely
She heaved a sigh
appetizing.
of relief. Eldest
Faintly,
young miss,
there was
you're
also
too
a hint of
reckless.
the smell of medicinal herbs.
If Bone Lord were to find out
It could
about
be
this,
seen that
he would
extremely
definitely
precious
punish the
medicinal
servant.
ingredients were used to boil the
Yiqing
fire to a
Luo's
sufficient
breathing
degree.
paused. As she
And
drank,
during the
she
stifling
looked
feeling in her
Guyon.
chest,
She raised her long and narrow
Bloodbone,
eyes and
she
fixed
had
her
only
gaze in
spat
the
out
direction
two
that was
words when she
enveloped
was
by the
stopped by
profound
Guy's
waves.
gaze.
He seemed to have seen
Yiqing Luo
something.
recalled what Guyon had
Her
said.
pink lips
in this
curled into a
place.
faint, cold arc,
The barbaric
as
blood
though filled
king
with
didn't
malice.
like to hear the 4 words, Barbaric Blood King.
She pursed her lips and continued
Chapter
to ask,
42
where is he?
63.
I want to see
Yiqing
him. Luo smiled as she held Guyon's hand. I said before,
Chapter
trust me.
42-49.
Her enchanting
Taking
eyes
care
seemed
of
to
her.
sparkle with a dazzling
Hearing
radiance.
this sentence,
Yiqing
as though
Luo
it was
felt
filled
her hair
with energy.
standing on end. Guyon pursed
From the
her
beginning,
lips tightly as her
Guyon had
hand, which
used
was holding
various
the young
phrases
lady's
like
hand,
Bone Lord
unconsciously
values
tightened.
you.
Bone Lord
It
dotes
showed
on
her
you,
anxiety
and so
and
on.
uneasiness at this moment.
Yiqing Luo was almost
Eldest
suspicious.
young miss, enough is enough.
That so-called Bone Lord
The
and
lady who was
Bloodbone
standing by
Barbaric
the
King
side
were not
stared
the
at
same
Yiqing
person.
Luo with an ugly expression.
After finishing
That
a bowl
time
was
was
a
fluke.
fluke. Yiqing Luo's
That was
stomach
because
finally didn't
Princess
feel empty
Yaju
anymore.
saw
that you are Sir Bone
Her
Lord's
strength
niece,
had
so she
also
showed
recovered a
mercy
lot.
and escaped once. She passed the
Do
bowl
you
back
really
to
think that you
Guyon
are
and
very
lifted the
powerful?
blanket.
She
Yiqing
looked
Luo's
down at her
brows
sweaty
rose as
clothes.
she squinted her eyes.
Guyon put the
Sizing
bowl
up
to
the
the
lady
side
in
and
front of
asked
her.
with great insight.
The lady
Miss,
raised her
do you
head
want to take a
arrogantly.
bath?
You should not know our
I'll go
identities.
prepare now.
I
He
Yiqing
arranged to
Luo
protect my
nodded.
secret guards in the dark.
According to Guyon, Yiqing Luo
She had been
directly interrupted
unconscious
the
here
lady's
for 2
words
days.
as she continued her sentence
Early
with a
on at
smile
the
which
cliff,
didn't look like
she
a
was
smile.
entangled with Bai Mei and the
The
rest,
lady was stunned
and
as
then
her
there was
brows
Bloodbone
knitted
Barbaric
tightly.
King.
How did you know?
Her body was already
Yiqing
sticky.
Luo couldn't help but laugh.
After the
Do you
bath,
think that everyone
she
is
braced
like
herself
you?
and went out to see what kind of place
retard.
this was.
Guyon first left
The
the
lady's
room and
face
came
turned
back
green
after
as she
about the
raised
time
her
it
hand
took for
and
a
pointed
stick
at
of
incense
Yiqing
to
Luo
burn.
angrily.
I am
Behind
just
her
reminding
were
you
4
not to
maids
cause
in
trouble for
uniform.
others because of your own
Each of them
selfish
held a
desires.
tray with the necessities for
Pausing
bathing.
for a moment, she
Eldest
intentionally
miss,
returned
please
Yiqing
follow
Luo's
me.
words back. Don't
Guyon
think that
helped
everyone is
Yiqing
like you,
Luo put on
too
an outer
free to do
robe and
anything.
supported her arm.
You have nothing to
After
do
walking
when you
out
are
of the
waste.
room,
What
why
came
don't you
into sight
obediently
was an
stay in the
extremely
Doom residence
spacious
and be your
loft.
ornament? The trees
Why
were
must you
lush
take up
and
our
verdant.
time?
The
A
lady's
pond of
heart
clear
was
spring
suppressing
was
too much
located on a
anger.
rockery.
At this moment,
At first
looking
glance,
at the
it
safe
was
and
elegant
sound
and
Yiqing
noble
Luo,
without losing
she
its
pretended to be
style.
unfathomable and
Just
finally
by looking at
exploded.
it, one would feel comfortable.
Gu-san. The person who
Guyon's
built
face
this darkened
had
when she
good
heard that
taste.
as she shouted the lady's
Following
code name.
Guyon,
They turned
the
into
lady
another
who was
long
called
corridor.
Gu-san snorted coldly.
Along the
You
way,
are like a dog,
they didn't see anyone
sticking
else.
to a waist. I don't have
When
the
they
time
reached
to
the
serve
bathing
her.
area, the 4
Guyon
maids
opened
neatly
her mouth
placed
as
the
she
things
wanted to
and
say
left.
something.
Only
But
Guyon
she was held back
supported
by the
Yiqing
young
Luo
lady
to the
as she
side of the
smiled
pool.
and shook her head at her.
In the pool,
A
thin
thin
mist
mist
curled
curled
up
up in spirals.
Guyon's expression
Above
was
the
complicated
pool,
as she
there were
looked at
pieces of
Gu-san
flower
and then at
petals
Yiqing
floating.
Luo, feeling
And
somewhat
mixed with a
guilty
light
for letting
medicine
eldest
box.
young miss hear these words.
When the medicine entered her nose,
Yiqing Luo pulled
Yiqing Luo
Guyon
could
behind
tell
her.
what medicinal herbs were
His
placed in the
footsteps
pool.
slightly moved.
They were
slowly
all
walking
medicinal
towards
herbs to
Gu-san.
strengthen the body and recuperate
The smile
body.
on his face grew wider
How
as he
considerate.
approached.
Yiqing
Gu-san's
Luo
pupils
rejected
constricted,
Guyon's
and he
service and let her
subconsciously
wait at the
hesitated
the door.
2 steps.
Stripping
What
off
do you
her
want to
robe,
do?
Yi-Ching Luo stepped
I'm just
into
telling
the
the
pool.
truth.
The warm
First,
water washed away her fatigue.
Yi-Ching Luo raised a finger
faint
and gave a
fragrance of
smile
herbs
which
and
didn't look
flowers
like
lingered
a
in the
smile.
air.
I do feel that I'm
She
very
closed her
powerful.
eyes
At least I
comfortably.
still have a brain.
On the side of Qi Yan,
Not waiting for
a head
Gu San
popped
to
out of his
scold him with a red
clothes.
face. When Xiao Qin saw
Yi-Ching
the young
Luo had
girl's
already
face covered
interrupted
by
her
the
as
mist
she
in the
raised her
pool,
second finger.
her red phoenix
Two,
feathers
what
seemed
I want
to
to
turn
do is
even
my
redder.
freedom.
His little wings could not help but flutter a few times. This secret guard, what position are you using to restrict my freedom? The girl's voice seemed to be covered with a layer of water vapor. Third, if you have any dissatisfaction with protecting me, this holy beast reject the person who issued the order. Yi Qing Luo. If you don't have the guts, you're just shut your mouth. So what if you peeked? Gu-san was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Put her hands beside the soup pool, at Yi Qing and looked at Qi Yan through the dense mist. I want to ask you. Fourth, what happened after I was in a coma? Luo's face was suddenly tainted with some treachery. She came to a strange place. Still did not understand the meaning behind that smile. She even became the so-called young Mississippi. A crisp sound rang out. She didn't understand what the blood-bone barbaric king wanted to do on his face. Qi Yan was like silent for a moment, scorching her face. I was originally holding my legs in the pet space. Gu-san covered his face as he gritted his teeth I was forcibly sucked out of the pet space by a force, and then I saw the blood-bone barbarian king. Chapter 4264. Chapter 4250. As a secret guard of the Gu family, it is your duty to obey the orders of the Gu family. She understood the meaning of blood-bone barbaric king's words. Gu Yun is just in this unfamiliar place. If I hear you say anything bad about Gu Yun next time, had used some unknown method to make her lose her profound energy. A slap on the face. Even her own divine weapon and anything that needed to be connected were all sealed. Her eyes were filled with a treacherous arc. Except for Qi Yan. It made her look like an Azura from the dark night. Especially when that pair of smiling eyes fell on her. It was probably she was in an ice cellar. Claws had been corroded by his blood. It was as if even his soul had been seen through by someone. Even though he had treated Qi Yan. Gu-san's in a short period of time, as his body didn't have the ability to fight. She wanted to kill this slut. Qi Yan replied, after he treated anger me, burst out a strong murderous intent. And then instructed others. The burning pain on her face kept telling her, you are the eldest missy of this Gu waste. After she raised her hand, the profound wave surge said earlier was not wrong. During the 2 days when you were unconscious, suddenly he indeed did not spare any effort to take care of you. As he quickly stretched out his hand to grab Gu-san's arm. Are you done messing around? really couldn't understand this operation. Gui shouted. Qi Yan rolled one round on the ground and rolled to the side of the pool. She felt even more wronged. The red phoenix feather hit Yi Qing Luo's arm, which was propped up on the pool. Looked at Gui aggrievedly. The warm water wetted its phoenix expressionless, his face solemn. It used its sharp beak to peck Yi Qing Luo's arm. Another shout rang out. That's right, blood-bone barbaric king. Gu-san bit his lower lip, as he unwillingly shifted his gaze. Thoughts? Gui glanced at Gu-san, then expressionlessly cupped its hands towards Yi Qing Luo. What do you mean? Not appearing in time. Qi Yan shook its head and broke free from Yi Qing Luo's hand. Should be punished. It's you humans. Yi Qing Luo bluntly said, the kind of thoughts a man has towards a woman, and apologize the kind of thoughts the overlord has towards you. As for you, Yi Qing Luo sized up Gui as the leader of the secret guards. You don't have the ability to manage your own subordinates, which means you don't have the ability to take on this heavy responsibility. So, the responsibility of the leader of the secret guards will be handed over to the man have towards a woman. Based on what? Qi Yan rolled his eyes at her. Furious. Who told you that blood-bone barbaric king's apologize to Gu Yun? Only has a head. Dream on. He has a body. Trying to usurp Gui's position. Yi Qing Luo had only seen blood-bone barbaric smiled twice, and both times based on the fact that I am the eldest miss of the Gu residents, and you are just a secret guard. Since he can freely control the blood bones, her smile became more radiant. He can use the blood bones to build a suitable body for himself. Added some viciousness. Not convinced. Luo. If not, all right, then learn something new. This is indeed the world of the big shots. You bitch. Qi Yan raised his mouth again and poked angry roar. Although I don't understand the love between you human beings, Gui's face darkened as he forcefully pushed her head in the direction of Gu Yun. In the past 2 days, the barbaric blood-bone king has been staring at you in the dead of night when there's no one around. First misses orders. That gaze. After saying that, he untied a wooden gaze of a venerable emperor staring at Gu Yun. Yi Qing saw the wooden token which represented the secret guard's captain appearing right in front of her against the blood-bone barbarian king at the edge of the cliff surfaced in his mind. You can't do this. The barbaric blood-bone king take on this heavy responsibility. It was indeed strange. There's something wrong with my eyesight. It was as if she was his most prized possession. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. At that time, she didn't think too much about it. This servant doesn't mean that. Now it's that just thought about it. It was indeed a little strange. So take it. But what Yi Qing Luo could confirm was couldn't be bothered to listen to her rejection as she directly snatched the wooden token from Gu Yi's hands and stuffed it into Gu Yun's between a man and a woman. Even Gu Yun was scared silly. As for what kind of feeling it was, just like that. At
He
the
had
moment,
inexplicably
she had
become
no
the
way
leader
of
of the
knowing.
Bone Mansion's dark night.
I can only wait until I
Looking
see
at
the
Bloodbone
Bloodbone gloomy
Barbarian
face
King
and
and
ask
asked
him
malevolent
personally.
and distorted face.
Qi Yan continued to
Yi
talk
Qing
about what
Luo
happened
rubbed her
when
chin,
Qing Luo was in a
expressing that she
coma.
was extremely satisfied
It was nothing
with this
more
arrangement.
than
The
very
barbaric
good.
Bloodbone Barbarian
On
King
the first day of
indeed
taking
attached
charge,
great importance
she had
to her.
successfully seized power.
This made Qi Yan even
What a
more
great
suspicious
start.
of the barbaric Bloodbone
Clap for
Barbarian
herself.
King's feelings towards Yi Qing Luo. Just as he was talking about it,
Chapter
Qing Luo's
42,
hand that was playing with
65.
the soup suddenly paused.
That calm and composed look,
as though the position of the
a
leader of the
delicate
Dark
rebuke
Guards
came out from her
belonged to
mouth.
her. This made Gu San's expression contorted.
Chapter
This
42,
lady was
51.
just too arrogant. Qi Yan's
Relying
vision
on
followed
Bone
Yi
Lord,
Qing Luo's
she had
gaze.
nothing to fear.
A figure flashed
His heart
past
was still
the door.
feeling indignant.
It fluttered its wings
Beside
and
him,
rushed
his
out of the
arm
room.
tightened.
Very
Gu
quickly,
San looked
a
over
man's
and saw
groan and
Gu
groan
Yi
with
with
a
her
sunken face
outside.
as he shot a glance at the other
Man.
side.
Here,
He indicated for her to
there
look
was actually
over.
a man.
Gu San
Didn't
followed
she not
his
see
gaze
anyone
and looked
along the
over.
way?
Instantly,
Yi Qing
the
Luo's
malevolent
brows
expression
creased
slightly
slightly
on
as
her
she
face.
sensitively sensed the surroundings.
A trace of astonishment
She
surfaced
quickly
on her
got
face.
up from the hot spring.
The direction that
Her
Gu
arm
Yi was
stretched
looking
out
at,
and
and the robe that was hanging
It
on
was
the
the
rack
direction
slid
where
into her
Princess
arms.
Zhu and Yi Qing
She
Luo
quickly
had
put on the
crossed hands
robe neatly
earlier.
and walked out of the room.
The raging hurricane had
The first
gradually
thing he
dissipated.
saw was Qi Yan flapping
It
his
also
wings
allowed
and pecking at a
everyone to
man
see
with force.
clearly.
A
The man
slender
hugged
figure,
his head,
sprawled on the
dodging
ground,
left and right
not
as he
moving at
cried
all.
out in pain.
That figure.
It was mixed with a few curses.
Wasn't it Princess Zhu?
He even stretched out his
This
hand,
knowledge
trying
immediately
to catch
set off
Qi
a
Yan to
thousand
vent his
layers of
anger.
huge waves.
Perhaps it was
All
because
of them
the
looked
pecking
at
was
the
too
figure
painful.
sprawled on the ground in disbelief.
That man's expression was
How could
sinister
this
as
be
his
possible?
palm surged with a powerful
Gu
profound
San was
wave,
the first to cry
striking
out
directly
in shock.
towards Qi Yan.
This cry made the
Qi
others
Yan.
regain their senses.
Yi Qing Luo's
That's
pupils
right.
tightened as
How
she
could this be
immediately
possible?
shouted and stretched out her
How
hand
could
towards
Princess
Qi Yan.
Zhu possibly lose to
Qi
Bone
Yan
Lord's
spread
niece?
its wings and nimbly avoided the
Bone
man's
Lord's
palm
niece's
and flew
body
back to Yi
obviously
Qing
didn't have
Luo's
any
body.
profound energy
Yi
fluctuations.
Qing Luo caressed Qi
Why
Yan's
was it
phoenix
that when the
feathers
both
and
of them
heaved a
crossed
sigh of
hands,
relief when
the
she
earth
saw that it
shook?
wasn't injured?
Bone Lord's
The
niece
current
was
Qi
safe
Yan
and
was
sound.
probably the same as her.
Princess Zhu
It could only
instead
maintain the size of this small
lost.
pet.
What on
Furthermore,
earth? His power as a holy
had
beast
happened,
had been
something
sealed.
that they didn't know about.
Who are you?
Could it be that?
Yi Qing Luo held
Bone
Qi
Lord
Yan in
thought
her
of a way
arms
to
as she
hide his
stared
niece's
coldly at
profound
the man
grade
in
in
order
front
to
of her.
protect her. The man had quickly
Actually,
retracted his palm the
Bone
moment Yi
Lord's
Qing
niece was
Luo
a hidden
spoke
top
and tidied up
exponent.
his appearance. In everyone's
When Yi
mind,
Qing
there
Luo
were
looked
already
at him,
numerous guesses. He even straightened his
Your
back and
Highness.
put on a graceful look as he
The palace
smiled at Yi
maids who
Qing
followed
Luo.
Princess
Eldest
Zhu
young
then
miss,
realized that this battle was
their
Mr.
princess's
Ren,
loss.
why are you here?
Yuing led the group
Suddenly,
of palace
hurried
maids as they
footsteps were
rushed
heard.
towards Princess
Gu Yun
Zhu.
walked over with a tray in
Yuing
her
helped
hands.
Princess Zhu up.
When she saw
that
that
there
man,
wasn't
the
any
expression
injury
on her
Princess
face turned
Zhu.
extremely ugly.
However, she
Princess
went around to Yi
Zhu
Qing
hung
Luo with a
limply in
vigilant
Lin
look.
Mingyao's arms, as
The
if she
man
had
who was
lost all
addressed
her
as
strength.
Mr. Ren fixed his gaze on
Yu
Yi
Ying's
Qing's
pupils
Luo as his
contracted
lips were
as she
filled with
immediately
smiles.
held on to
Miss
Princess
Yun,
Zhu's
I heard that
wrist.
this Mr.'s fiancé has
After
returned.
checking her pulse,
So this
Yu
Mr.
Ying's
naturally
expression
wanted to come
immediately
over and
sunk
take a
as she
look.
stared fiercely at Yi
What
Qing
kind of
Luo's
person
direction.
is this Mr.'s
Eldest young
mysterious
miss.
fiancé?
What have you done to the princess?
As he spoke,
He
it was
stroked his
obvious
chin.
that Princess Zhu
Now that
was
I've
not
met her,
injured by
I'm
anyone.
very satisfied with this
Instead,
fiancé of mine.
he was poisoned.
Gu Yun's face
That
turned
woman
even
had
more
poisoned her
ashen.
royal highness.
She straightened her back
Despicable
and blocked
and
the man's
shameless.
gaze.
Hand
Regarding
over the
engagement,
antidote, Bone Lord did not
hearing
personally
Yu Ying's
state
stern
it.
shout and questioning.
Young Master Ren,
Only
please
then
conduct
did the
yourself with
onlookers
dignity.
understand.
Don't ruin
As
the
it turned
reputation
out,
of my
this
eldest
first young
miss of the Gu residence
Ha, ha,
had
ha.
poisoned Princess Zhu.
Miss Yun,
Bone Lord has
she
promised
sure
that
had
whoever
guts.
can rank
He
first on
actually
the honor
dared to
roll
do
will
such a
marry
risky
eldest
thing.
young mistress.
As expected of
In the
someone
entire
from the Bone
old
Mansion.
city, who else can it be other than me? The man's eyes
I'm
were
the only
full
one
of
who
pride
thinks
and
that.
complacency. Eldest young mistress, being able
Miss
to
will be
poison
my
Princess
fiancée
sooner or later
without
anyone
won't you?
noticing and successfully
Gu Yun was
escape from
expressionless.
Princess Zhu's attack.
The matter
regarding the honor roll
Is she
merely
very
a rumor
powerful?
spread by you and has
Among
nothing
the
to do with
onlookers,
Bone Lord.
someone suddenly spoke up.
Moreover, Mr. Ren
At the
came
very
uninvited
least,
and
it's enough
harassed
to
eldest
prove
young
first
mistress'
Mrs.
strength. Your
As soon
behavior
as
is
these
that of a
words were
lecher.
spoken, many people
Bone
chimed
Lord
in
will not
agreement.
hand
hand eldest young mistress over to you.
Luo's brows rose as
the
her
man
gaze shot
smiled
towards
deepened
the
when he heard
onlooker
that
who had just
there's
opened
no
his
smoke
mouth.
without fire. That person didn't
If
notice
Bone Lord
Yi
had not
Luo's
mentioned
gaze.
this matter, the outside
After
world
everyone
would not
agreed.
be so spread.
That person took a look left and right and quietly left. Chapter 42-52. Whose person was he?
Facing Gu Yun's anger,
What
the man
motive did he have to intentionally
it.
stir up the pace here?
His naked gaze stared
Although,
at Yi
what that
Luo
person
without any
said,
concealment.
We're all helping
His eyes
her.
were filled with the man's
Helping
evil
her to lead the
smile.
onlookers. Earlier. Although he had just neared the bathroom, before he could steady his footsteps,
Chapter 42,
he was already
66.
discovered by Yi Luo. Yu Ying's expression
was
turned
enveloped
gloomy
by a
as she
hazy
listened
mist
to the
again.
surrounding crowd's flattery
But
and echoing. She couldn't
She
stop
raised
his
her eyes
imagination
and
gritted her teeth as she
The
stared
young
at
lady's
Yi
face
Luo,
was devastatingly
eldest young
beautiful.
miss.
Her
Having
fair
a relative
jade-like
of the
skin
royal
was as
family
smooth
is
as
a
a
newborn
crime.
baby's, and her pink lips
If
were
this matter
slightly
reaches
pursed,
the emperor's
as though
ears,
she was seducing
even
him.
if Bone Lord personally
Thinking
pleads
back
for
to
you,
the scene
it
just
wouldn't
now,
be that easy.
where the water vapor had blurred
If
everything
eldest
in a
young
flash,
Miss hands over
he
the
felt a
antidote
chill
now.
run down his
Princess
spine.
will let bygones be
The
bygones.
man's eyes were almost bursting with evil fire.
Want
This
to
naked
kill.
gaze made Yi Luo's
Kill
slender
her.
brows creased tightly.
Princess
Xia Zhu was
Mr.
so
Ren,
angry that
don't
her
go
entire
overboard.
body was trembling. Gu Yun was
She wanted
infuriated
to
by the
open her
man's
mouth
shameless
and point
attitude
to
as her
Yi
face
Luo to
sunk.
scold her.
If this goes to Bone Lord,
But she couldn't
it
muster
won't
up any
end well.
strength at all.
The man's
Even when
expression
he
changed
spoke,
slightly
his
as
voice
his
was
gaze
very
also
weak.
converged. As though the
But
next
the gaze
moment
he used to
she
look
would
at Yi
stop
Luo
breathing was still that. Princess Xia Zhu
Wretched.
was angry,
He laughed
frustrated and
mischievously.
embarrassed. Miss Yun is such an
In front of
intelligent
so many
person,
people,
I'm sure
she,
you understand.
the
dignified Princess Xia
If this
Zhu
really goes
was
to
plotted
Bone
against
Lord,
by a trash
eldest young
without any
Mrs.
profound
reputation.
energy. If this news were to spread to
He
other
was laughing as he
powerhouses,
rubbed his hands.
her reputation as a
You.
princess would probably be
Gu Yun
completely
gritted her
gone.
teeth
as she stared at him
The more
angrily,
she thought about
shameless,
it,
the more her anger burned.
To be
able to gain the beauty's
She
eyes,
couldn't wait to
what's
burn
the
Yi
harm in being
Luo into
shameless?
ashes.
The man
Your
pretended to be
Highness.
suave as he swept
Yu
the hair
Ying's
on his
eyes
forehead
turned
and
red.
even winked at Yi Luo. Her princess had never suffered such
Luo.
humiliation.
Huge
Yu Ying,
poison.
who felt sorry for her princess,
Ugly
stared
rejection.
at Yi Luo. If
Eldest
it wasn't
young
for the
miss.
fact that her profound energy
The main
was sealed for
character
some
who was
unknown
threatened
reason,
and
intimidated time and she time would
again.
definitely raise her fist to
Her
punch
brows
him. Rose slightly as
her
her long
disgusted
and
gaze
narrow
naturally
eyes
fell
fell
into
into
the
the
man's
coquettish
eyes.
arc.
The
Her
man
lips
laughed
curled into a
loudly
smirk,
instead,
as though
I
she was
believe
watching a
eldest
good
young
show.
miss
is very satisfied
On the
with
surface,
this fiancé
he
of
looked
yours.
calm and at ease,
The
as
last
though he was
person who used
completely
such a
at ease.
disgusting gaze to look at me.
Which part
Do
of
you
her
know
looked
what
like
happened
she
to
was
him?
being threatened or intimidated?
Yi Luo was expressionless.
This leisurely look,
as though
could it
she was
be?
showing off, made
Eldest
Yu Ying's
young
tightly
miss kept
clenched
him under your
fists to the
skirt.
point of cracking. The man's gaze was
Now,
fiery.
you're the one begging me.
Yi Luo continued
Yi
expressionless.
Luo's lips
That
curled
person's
upwards with
grave
some
grass
evilness.
is already
This
6
is your
feet
attitude
tall.
of begging others.
Ha! Yu Ying's
Ha, ha,
pupils
ha.
constricted as her face
The man
sunk.
was stunned for a
Eldest
moment
young
before
miss.
he realized
Are you
the meaning
determined to
behind
blow
Yi
this matter
Luo's
up?
words as he couldn't help
Yi
but burst
Luo
out
shrugged
laughing.
her shoulders
This master is
disapprovingly.
very
From the
satisfied
beginning
with
till
you
the
as
end.
my fiancé.
Don't you have any
very
idea
satisfied.
who is the one causing
Gu
trouble?
Yun's face was cold
Using
as
the
she
heaven
directly
realms
raised her
emperor to
hand and
suppress
blocked
her.
in front of Yi Luo.
Previously, when
about
the
to
king
make
of
a
the
move
earth
against
realm
the man.
appeared, she wasn't
The
afraid.
man
All right.
suddenly turned around
In
and
the
left in
end,
another direction.
what do you want?
He
Yu
laughed
Ying
as he
asked
walked.
patiently. Gu Yun was
Yi
so
Luo
angry that
raised
she
her
didn't know
brows.
whether to put
You're
her
the one
hand
who
down
requested
or not.
me.
Do I need to tell
Just
you what
like
to
that,
do? The man's figure
so
disappeared from their
insincere.
line of sight. Yu Ying, even though the man
Beg
had
my
walked far
ass.
away, she
His
had never
arrogant
seen
and
someone as
excited
shameless
laughter
as
could
Yi
still be heard.
Luo. Gu Yun's
Since you don't have
expression
any
changed
sincerity,
again and again.
then
Make way. Don't disturb my mood of shopping.
Finally,
he put his hand
Yi
down.
Luo waved her hand.
She pursed
with a
her
look
lips
of
and bowed her
disgust.
head
She
towards
lifted her
Yi
feet
Luo
and
to
prepared
ask
to
for
leave.
forgiveness. Eldest
How
young
could you
miss,
let her
I'm
leave
sorry.
so easily?
It's this
Such
servant
a
who
big
didn't guard
thing
the
had
bathroom
happened,
properly,
and she still wanted
giving the
to go
scoundrel an
shopping.
opportunity to take
How
advantage.
could this young girl
It's
be
this
so
servant who didn't
strange?
protect you properly. I'm fine. He absolutely
Yi
could not be allowed
Luo's
to
gaze
live.
retracted
from the direction
Yu
where the
Ying
man had
signaled
left.
with her
eyes. She was
Among the
suspicious of Gu
crowd,
Yun in
the
the
royal
beginning.
guards who had been standing
But just
guard
now,
leaped down
when
from
facing
the heads
that
of the
man,
onlookers.
Gu Yun
All
was
of them
serious
stood in
about
front of
protecting
Yi
her heart,
Luo,
blocking her
If
path.
the man hadn't left in time,
Gu Yun immediately guarded
she
Yi
was afraid
Luo
that
vigilantly.
now,
Gu
the
Yun would have
expression
fought
on
with
her
the man
face
for her. Changed from the days
after
when she
being
received
disturbed
the
by the
wooden token
man,
to a
she
stern
didn't
look.
have the mood to return to
I
the
don't have
pool
any
to
evil
soak in the
intentions in
bath.
coming up with this plan.
She directly
I only
beckoned
hope
Gu
that
Yun to
eldest young
leave.
miss will hand over the antidote. Yu Ying stared at Yi Luo,
Chapter 42,
warning her word by
53.
word. Gu Yun
Yi
puffed up her
Luo
cheeks,
snorted lightly,
gritted her
this
teeth,
formation,
and said,
doesn't
"That's
seem
the
to have
Ren
no
family's
evil
second
intentions."
young master, Ren Jiaming, one of the 4 great imperial families. He's an arrogant and despotic heathenistic disciple. The girl's voice was light and
families,
sweet, with a hint of playfulness.
Capturing this piece of information,
However,
Ying
didn't hear any
pupils
playfulness
unconsciously
in his
enlarged in
words.
shock.
She only heard a strong provocation
thought
and sarcasm.
that she was
afraid of the reputation
Princess
of the four
Xia
great
Zhu
celestial
suddenly
families
grabbed
and
Ying's
hurriedly
arm with
comforted
all
her.
her might.
Don't be afraid, young
Her
mistress.
breathing was very heavy.
If
and
young
her voice
Master
was
Ren still
intermittent.
dares to
Force
mess around,
her to
Bone
hand
Lord will
over the
definitely not
antidote.
let him off. She really couldn't
Although the
stand
Bone
feeling
Sovereign
of
has not
weakness.
appeared for a very long time.
It was as if he had
His
become a
prestige
cripple,
and his legend are
Since
unstoppable.
that slut refused to hand over the
Luo
antidote,
blinked her
then he would
eyes.
use force. He was completely
She wanted to see
dumbfounded.
how much poison that slut
She
had
didn't
on
pay
her.
attention to what Guyun was
Yes,
saying.
Your Highness.
In his mind,
He
Ying
kept
obeyed
repeating the
Princess
words,
Xia
"For
Zhu's
great
order.
heavenly clans."
She
For
glanced
great
at the
families.
Imperial Guards and repeated
For
Princess
great
Xia
families.
Zhu's words.
Fuck,
The Imperial
isn't this the
Guard did
heaven
not
realm?
hesitate.
For great
When
clans.
the command was heard, those royal
Xiao
guards who
Jin,
were blocking in front of Yi
Pei
Qing's
Xing's main
directly
family,
raised
the
their
Huangfu
hands and struck
family,
towards
was
Yi
also
Qing
one of the
Luo's
four
neck.
great families.
Its speed was
The
extremely
four great
fast,
heavenly
and its
families that
momentum was
Guyun
ferocious.
mentioned and the four great heavenly families
Bang.
that she knew
Should have
profound
two different
ripples lingered
meanings,
on
right?
Guyun's body.
Yi Qing
She
Luo's
pushed out a
expression
palm
kept
wind with
changing,
both hands,
becoming more
sending
and
the
more
Imperial
steely
guards
green
who were surrounding her
and more
flying.
gloomy.
The boundless
Guyun saw
profound
this and
energy was
panicked.
like a stormy sea,
Missy,
rolling wave after wave.
You really don't have to be
Yi
afraid of
Qing
young
Luo,
Master
who was
Ren.
standing behind Guyun, was
Even if
shocked
he is
by
the
the
second
vibration
young
in
master
the
of the
air.
Ren clan.
The
Guyun,
Ren clan would
she
definitely
was
not
really
dare to
strong.
offend Bone Lord.
It could be said that
The
other
place
than
we are at
Dimo
now
Xian and
is
the
it the
people
heaven
behind the
realm.
Nether Palace,
He was the only one she had met
interrupted
who could be
Guyun's
considered
words,
as a strong
held her arm
existence.
and asked solemnly.
The violent wind
Guyun
violently
was stunned
blew
by
against
Yi
the
Qing
skin on her
Luo's solemn
face.
expression as she nodded
However,
stiffly.
it did
Yes.
not cause any discomfort.
Heavenly realm.
She didn't know if
She
it
was
was
actually
because she
in the
still
heaven
had the
realm.
body's instincts,
The
or
barbaric
because this
blood
body
bone
had
king
already been
actually
cleansed
brought her
and
to
was
the
no
heaven
longer
realm.
immortal. What was he
Or
trying
perhaps,
to do?
the barbaric blood
What was
bone
his
king
motive?
had done something to her
What
when he
was he
sealed
planning?
her power.
Yi
When
Qing
facing
facing
these
these
powerful
powerful
profound
profound
waves
waves
and
and
majestic
I want
aura,
to see him.
he did not feel any pressure
That
at all.
he'd naturally referred to
There
the
was no
barbaric
tightness in
blood
his
bone chest
king.
or the feeling of his
Guyun
internal
wanted
organs
to say
being
something, but
squeezed.
on seeing Yi Qing Luo's
Guyun's
gloomy
palm
and
strike
ugly
caused
expression,
Ying's
she
expression to
assumed that
freeze.
she was disgusted by Ren
She
jamming
stared at
earlier
Guyun
and wanted
with
to
a probing
complain to
gaze.
Bone Lord.
Ying
She
lowered
didn't
her
try to
eyes
dissuade
and looked
him.
at Princess Xia Zhu.
After sending
who
him
was
back
being
to his
supported
room,
in her
she
arms.
bowed and left.
She spoke again.
After the time
a few
it took
people
for an
will trap
incense
Miss
stick
Yun.
to burn.
The target of
Guyun
the
came
others
back
is the
with a
first
strange
mist of the Gu
expression.
residents. Yi Qing
The
Luo
formation
looked
of the
behind her but
Imperial
didn't
Guards
see the
changed,
barbaric blood
and a
bone
few of them
king's
quickly
figure.
surrounded Guyun.
Her expression darkened
Following
even further.
that were the three royal guards,
Guyun deliberated
charging
over her
towards Yi
words
Qing
and comforted.
Luo.
Eldest Miss,
They were
Bone
extremely
Monarch
fast.
just sent a message back.
Like a hot knife
He
through
has something
butter.
to do outside and needs
Yi
to be
Qing
busy
Luo
for a few
narrowed
days.
her eyes slightly, but
He
had
will
no
probably,
intention of avoiding
probably
him.
only return when the
In
honor
the blink
list
of an
opens.
eye, the three Imperial
Yi Qing
Guards had
Luo,
already reached
he dared
out
to
with their
bring her to the
hands.
heaven realm.
At this moment,
Afraid to come out and see
the
her,
calm-looking girl suddenly raised her head and smiled
Yi
at the
Qing
three
Luo
of them in a
started to
sly
suspect
manner.
that the barbaric blood bone
That
king
smile
was
could
hiding
definitely
some
be
huge
called
secret in
treacherous.
secret.
Her
Her
smile
face
was
darkened,
beautiful,
and the coldness in her eyes grew colder. However,
Guyun
when they
hurriedly
looked
continued,
at it, they
Bone
felt
Monarch,
an inexplicable
Bone
chill,
Monarch also
as if
ordered.
something had drilled into their hearts.
Everything in the Gu residence will
What
be
was
managed
that?
by eldest Mississippi.
The three Imperial Guards
in the
were
heaven
startled.
realm. Eldest Miss
Just
doesn't
as he
need
was
to
about
fear
to raise
anyone.
his hand and press on that
You
strange
just need
feeling.
to be yourself.
Suddenly, all
As
three
she
of them
spoke,
fell to the ground
Guyun
at the
took
same
out a
time.
domino from her bosom.
This scene left the
Complex
onlookers
totems were
dumbfounded.
carved on the
What
dominoes.
happened?
Why
It was
did
also
those three
faintly
royal
emitting
guards
a cool
fell onto the
aura.
ground before they could
With
even
just
touch
a
Yi Qing
glance,
Luo.
one could tell that this was
Her
no
symptoms
ordinary
seemed to be
object.
exactly the same as Princess
Guyun
Xia
passed the
Zhu's.
bone token to her.
So to speak,
This
was
Bone
the live
Lord's
version of
token.
how Yi Qing Luo
This
dealt
token
with
can
Princess
mobilize
Xia
all
Zhu.
the forces in the bone residence.
Previously, Princess
Yi
Xia
Qing
Zhu's
Luo,
profound wave
the
was too
barbaric
strong,
blood bone king,
and the
was
hurricane
really
it created
ambitious.
had obstructed everyone's
He
vision.
directly handed over the control
Everyone
of
had
the
yet
bone
to see
residence
clearly
to her.
what happened after Princess
Wasn't
Xia
he afraid
Zhu
that she
and
would
Yi Qing
directly
Luo's
take over
exchange
his
of
forces
blows,
in the
and
heaven
it had
realm?
already ended.
This time, they were able to see everything clearly.
Chapter 42-54.
Fight out. Very good. This is the style of the Bloodbone
Chapter
Barbarian
42-68.
It seemed
Yi
that
Qing
Guyun's
Luo
hatred
hadn't
for
touch those three royal guards at all. Yi Qing Luo
How did the royal
guards
get
poisoned?
It
felt as if he had
touched
a block of ice. The three royal guards were all
but very
in a daze.
quickly,
it was assimilated by the warmth of her fingertips. Princess Xiao
She held the domino card and looked it up and down.
She grabbed Yu Ying's arm tightly.
Her long and narrow eyes
She wanted to scold Yi Qing Luo for being shameless,
what did you mean by the
wind
cloud
list just now? Word. Why did he only come
Princess
back when the wind
Xiaoju's
cloud
shoulder
opens?
lightly as she comforted her gently.
Young mistress doesn't know about
But when
the
she raised her
excellence list.
eyes and looked towards
Gu
Yiqing
Yun's
Luo's
face was
direction,
full of shock.
her gaze was
This
as though
honor
it was
list
laced
is the
with
most
poison.
prestigious
Eldest
competition
young
in our
miss of the
heaven
Gu
realm.
residence is really awe-inspiring.
It is held once every 3 years.
Awe-inspiring.
If you want to become
Just putting
famous and be
down.
loved and
What
respected by
awe-inspiring
others,
about that?
then you must participate
There's
in this
no
honor
sense
list.
of accomplishment at all right.
Only the top 100 will be chosen in every
spread
ranking
her hands
list.
out as she turned one round
As long
on the
as you
spot.
can squeeze into the top
Her
100,
red dress
you will
fluttered
be
like
in the
a
top
butterfly's
100 of the
wings as it
entire heaven
fluttered.
realm. The young lady
Some
was
people are
smiling.
favored by
Why
the
don't we
heavens?
try to see if you have more men
If
or
they
I have
lose
more
on the
poison
excellence
on me?
list, they will be
Her
abandoned.
words paused as she gave an
If
evil
someone has
smile,
been miserable
or
since
should
a
I
young
say,
age and is abandoned by
let's
others
see
like
if your
a pair of
princess
worn-out
can hold on
shoes,
till you snatch
if one
the
can
antidote
obtain a
from
place
me.
on the honor list,
This
then
was a
from
blatant
now on,
provocation.
his future will be bright.
Yu Ying's brows were
The honor
covered in a
list
haze
determines
as her
a person's
gaze swept
status,
across
fame,
and strength
Very
in the heaven
quickly,
realm.
there were a few royal
After
guards
Gu Yin
pressing
explained
towards
in detail,
Yiqing Luo,
she looked at Yiqing Luo
The
in
crowd's eyes
astonishment.
widened as they
Why does
stared
an eldest
fixedly
young
at
miss
Yiqing
know about the
Luo?
wind cloud list?
They wanted to see
Yiqing
clearly how
Luo
Yiqing
pursed her
Luo
lips and
made
cursed
her
in her
move.
heart. Can I
But
say that I was forcibly brought
just
from
as
the
the
earth
few
realm to
royal
the heaven
guards were
realm by your
closing in on
master,
Yiqing Luo,
which
I'm
was the most
completely
crucial
clueless
step
about
which
anything
everyone
in the
was
heaven
staring
realm,
at.
okay?
A tall figure
complained
descended
in
from
his
the
heart,
sky
but
as he
he
landed
still
in
put on
front
a
of
serious
Yiqing Luo.
expression.
And
I'm not
directly
interested
blocked
in the
those
wind
royal
cloud
guards.
list.
The
That
surprise
man
on Gu
raised his
Yun's
hand
face
and
was
waved his
replaced by
sleeves as a few
smile.
fists were hammered down
Eldest
with a
miss
bam,
has bone
bam,
lord as her
bam.
backing.
The
Even
few
if she is
royal
not on the
guards were
wind
all
and
sent
cloud
flying.
laying.
All the great clans
Following
in the heaven
that,
domain
that
had
man
to
brushed
respect
his
eldest
hair as he raised his head and gave a self-proclaimed
that she
suave
didn't want the
smile as he
backing of the
turned back to
barbaric
look at
blood-bone
Yiqing
king.
Luo. As
This
for Bone
master
Lord's
is here,
current whereabouts,
eldest young
this
miss,
servant
don't be
does not
afraid.
know.
Gu
Yiqing
Yun
Luo
answered
looked at the
Yiqing
man
Luo's
who
second
suddenly
question.
appeared.
Bone Monarch had not
Such a
returned to the
Chinibyo
Bone
entrance,
residence for a
such a
long period of
script.
time, and there are many matters
Was
in the
there something
outside
wrong
world
with
waiting
him?
for Bone Monarch to
What's
settle.
there to be
So
afraid
Bone
of?
Monarch missed his appointment
Did she
with
look
eldest
like she
young
was
Mississippi.
afraid?
Yiqing Luo's
Second young
eyelids
master
drooped
of
as
the
she
Ren
pondered
family.
over the deeper meaning behind
Why
Gu
is the
Yun's
second
words.
young master of the Ren family
For a
here?
very long time,
He's
logically
helping niece
speaking,
Bone Lord.
the blood-bone barbaric
What is the
king had
relationship
always been
between
sealed in
second
the
young
Earth
master
realm.
Ren and Bone Lord's
Where
niece?
did this heaven realm power come
Why
from?
would second young master Ren
If it was a
help her?
force from 10,000 years
heard
ago
that.
that had been passed down to the
Princess
present, it was
Xiaoju
absolutely
is in love with
impossible
second
for
young
him to have
master
such a
Ren and has
reputation
been
in the
chasing
heaven
after
realm
him.
even now.
Second young
Judging
master
from Gu
Ren
Yun's
should be more
tone,
familiar with Princess Xiaoju.
The four
Why
great
would he help
heavenly
Bone
clans
Lord's
were all
niece?
afraid of the existence
The
of the Bone
appearance of this
Mansion.
person immediately
This
caused the
meant that,
onlookers to boil
although the
with
barbaric
excitement.
blood-bone king's forces
The
in the
second
heaven
young
realm
master
had been
of the Ren
established
family
for some
was
time,
extremely famous
they were
in the
still
old
in the
city.
modern era. It
It
seemed
had
like
both
the
a beautiful
barbaric
name and a
blood-bone monarch
beautiful
was hiding a
name.
lot of secrets. When will the ranking start? This reputation was
Yiqing
because the
Luo
Ren
raised
clan's
her
second
brows
young
and
master was
asked,
blessed by the heavens.
Gu Yun, one more
He was
month.
born into one of the heaven realm's
1
four
month.
great
In
families.
other words,
the Ren
the
clan,
barbaric blood-bone
and was
king would
recognized
not
as a
return within a
cultivation
month.
genius since he was young.
Did he really trust her to manage
Others would
his
need to
power
cultivate
for a month
to complete this.
He wasn't afraid when he came
He
back.
only needed 10 days to
All
half
the
a month
forces
to
have
complete
rebelled.
it. It could be said
the
that the
forces
second
were all
young master
destroyed
of the
by
Ren
her.
family was the kind of
Where
person
is the
who
main
walked ahead of
entrance?
ordinary people.
Yiqing Luo
This
asked
strength
again.
and talent led to his frivolous
Gu Yun
nature.
pointed in a direction.
He loved to eat,
Yiqing
drink,
Luo
and be
tossed
merry,
the bone
as
tablet
well
into
as
the
to linger
sky
in the
and
bushes
caught it
of
tightly,
flowers,
stuffing it into her
In any
sleeves.
case,
Let's
even
go.
if he were to play and wander
She
around,
strode towards
he
the
wouldn't
main
be able to do
entrance.
so.
Gu Yun
And no
hurriedly
one was able
followed,
to chase up
eldest
to his
miss,
footsteps.
Where are you going?
It could be said that even if they knew that the second young master of the Ren family was a hedonistic disciple, he was still the target of admiration of many young ladies. Chapter 4269. Hearing Ren Jianming's name. Princess Xiaoju, who was extremely weak, struggled to raise her head. His gaze fell on Ren Jianming. She moved her lips weakly. Brother Ming. However, the man whom she missed dearly did not even look at her. His vision had always been on Yiqing Luo's side. From Princess Xiaoju's angle, she could clearly see that when Ren Jianming looked at Yiqing Luo, his eyes were brimming with interest and the curvature on his lips. Big Brother Ming is very interested in that slut. Brother Ming had taken a fancy to that slut. The thought caused Princess Xiaoju's expression to turn hideous. Facing Princess Xiaoju's scorching and vengeful gaze, Yiqing Luo expressed that her heart wasn't affected at all.
She narrowed her eyes and looked lazy. She looked at Rin Jianming, who suddenly appeared and wanted to be a hero to save the damsel in distress. He didn't show any other emotions. Ren Jianming, who thought he was handsome and elegant, was speechless. A furious slam. Why wasn't this woman following the script? How was he going to pick up girls? Generally speaking, when a girl was saved by a hero in a time of crisis, shouldn't she be unable to repay him and could only devote herself to him? Can't eldest miss give me a little bit of the reaction that a woman should have? However, Ren Jianming's inner roar didn't reach Yiqing Luo's ears. Yiqing Luo calmly retracted her vision and without saying a single word, she directly lifted her leg and walked past Ren Jianming. Was he treating the second young master of the Ren family as heir? Ai, eldest young miss. Eldest young miss. Ren Jianming was also stunned by Yiqing Luo's actions. He hurriedly moved his body and blocked in front of Yiqing Luo. Eldest young miss, I've saved you, don't you have anything to say to me? Yiqing Luo shot a glance at the person who was blocking her. Save me? Are you sure it's to save me? There was a hint of mockery in her half-smiling eyes. Ren Jianming laughed out loud as he stared at Yiqing Luo with an even more fervent gaze, although this young master was indeed standing by the side and watching the show not too long ago. But, after all, I was the one who personally beat these royal guards to the ground. Naturally, it can be said that I saved you. Ren Jianming was extremely thick-skinned. Facing Yiqing Luo's ridicule, he totally didn't put it to heart. Yes. This Ren Jianming should have been watching the crowd from the beginning. From the direction where Ren Jianming appeared. Yiqing Luo saw what happened earlier. Using the fact that she had poisoned Princess Xia Zhu, she had spurred the crowd's tempo and made everyone chime in. Plotting against Princess Xia Zhu successfully was also based on her own ability. She didn't expect that the person who set the pace was actually Ren Jianming's man. It was obvious that Ren Jianming had instructed that person to do so. Yiqing Luo couldn't understand what motive Ren Jianming had. If you say that he is a hedonistic son of a rich family. However, his talent was outstanding, and he could beat you up to the heavens at any moment. You said that he was a powerful expert, right? He was also shameless, loitering in the bushes of flowers, eating, drinking, whoring, gambling, and anything. However, the good thing about Ren Jianming was that, no matter what he wanted, he would definitely show it on his face. He would never hide it. For example, his ambition for the wind cloud list. For example, his interest in her. Ren Jianming, who was being stared at by Yiqing Luo, indeed didn't have any bashful expression. Chapter 4270. Fiancé. Ren family's second young master said. Bone Lord's niece is his fiancé. Did I hear wrongly? Fiancé. When did this happen? When did the Ren family and Gu residents form a marriage alliance? Such a huge matter and it's not spread out. Ren Jianming obviously did it on purpose. That sentence was spoken without the slightest bit of concealment. Instantly, it set off thousands of waves. Everyone was stunned by this news. Gu Yun's face flushed red from Ren Jianming's shameless words. Master Ren. What rubbish are you sprouting? Our eldest miss and you are not related at all. What motive do you have to slander our eldest miss's reputation? Ren Jianming had called her fiancé in front of so many onlookers. Wasn't it to intentionally make everyone think that Gu Residence's eldest miss was his fiancé? This was simply trying to destroy eldest miss's innocence. Borrowing the power of public opinion, forcing the Gu residents to have no choice but to marry eldest miss to the Ren family. My goal is naturally to make your young miss my fiancé. Ren Jianming's reply was also very shameless as he grinned. That pair of sinister eyes clearly showed that he was determined to win. Towards Yiqing Luo, he was determined to win. Pooey. You're shameless. Gu Yun had never met such a shameless person as the hand which was pointing at Ren Jianming started to tremble. Gu Yun's furious rebuke and Ren Jianming's reply. This made the crowd start to discuss even more. Each and every one of them were pondering when the feelings between the two of them had started. It really made Yiqing Luo and Ren Jianming a couple. Fiancé. Princess Xia Zhu's eyes widened when she heard these three words as her little hand grabbed Yu Ying's hand weakly. Her face was filled with hurt and disbelief. Big Brother Ming had actually personally admitted that that slut was his fiancée. Brother Ming obviously knew her feelings for him, why did he still do this? Yu Ying felt the person in her arms and that hand which was grabbing her kept trembling, grabbing her tightly for a moment and then loosening it weakly the next moment. Because of her tense emotions, her breathing gradually became weak from the urgency it had been before. Your Royal Highness. Princess. Yu Ying held Princess Xia Zhu tightly in a panic, and anxiously called out to her. However, Princess Xia Zhu's face was pale. Her twisted face was filled with disbelief and hatred as the light slowly faded away. Yu Ying cried out in alarm. This also interrupted the discussion of the crowd, and they all looked over in unison. Then he discovered, Princess Xia Zhu looked as if she couldn't breathe. Her eyes had already turned white, and she was about to die at any moment. Young miss. Gu Yun's face turned pale when she saw this. If the princess died in the hands of the eldest miss, this matter might be a little troublesome. Especially when Bone Lord was not in the residence before the excellence list was released. If something were to happen, would she really be able to protect eldest miss? Gu Yun tightly pursed her lips, her eyes filled with anxiety and worry. Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes, slightly curving into an extremely shallow arc, unable to tell what emotions she was feeling. She just stared at Princess Xia Zhu and raised her eyebrows. However, he did not calmly watch Princess Xia Zhu die as Gu Yun expected. On the contrary, she took out a medicine bottle and threw it beside Yu Ying's feet. The medicine bottle rolled a few rounds and knocked onto Yu Ying's shoes. Chapter 42-71. Antidote. Yiqing Luo spread out her hands with an indifferent look. It's up to you to believe it or not. Antidote. Yu Ying's brows twitched as she looked suspiciously at the medicine bottle by her feet. She didn't think that eldest young miss of the Gu residence would be so kind-hearted. But, as Princess Xia Zhu's breathing became weaker and weaker, it had reached the stage where she could only exhale but not inhale. Yu Ying's hesitant heart started to waver again. She stared at the unremarkable medicine bottle by her feet. Finally, she gritted her teeth and picked up the medicine bottle. When she raised her eyes, she seemed to be able to see the cold smile hanging on the young lady's lips. As though she had long expected that she would do so. Yu Ying pursed her lips tightly as her lips turned white from the force. She suppressed the urge to throw the medicine bottle away. Whether this was the antidote or not, she had to give it to Princess Xia Zhu to try. Compared to Princess Xia Zhu's current condition, there was no worse result than now. If this antidote was fake, eldest young miss of the Gu residence would definitely pay the price for this. Yu Ying gritted her teeth as she opened the medicine bottle. The medicine bottle was filled with liquid. She shook it and heard the sound of water. An extremely unpleasant smell filled their nostrils. Yu Ying's face instantly turned black. What kind of smell was this? She couldn't use words to describe it. It was like all kinds of excrement mixed together. Or like all kinds of rotting corpses mixed together. This thing, how could it possibly enter her stomach? Was eldest young miss of the Gu residence intentionally teasing her? Yu Ying's hand which was holding the medicine bottle was about to explode. Her venomous gaze was like a sharp blade as it pierced towards Yiqing Luo. TSK. I only have this bottle of antidote. If you crush it, whatever happens to your princess,
it's none of my business. The young lady's teasing voice rang at this moment. Her eyes curved as her eyes were filled with craftiness. Clearly, he was trying to shirk the responsibility of poisoning Princess Xiaozhu from his words. After all, she had already handed over the antidote. Ying gritted her teeth as she said word by word, "Eldest young miss, are you sure this is the antidote?" These words were almost squeezed out from the gaps of her teeth. Yiqing Luo looked at her smilingly, "It's up to you whether you believe me or not." Ying stared at her for a few breaths. Finally, he took a deep breath and poured the indescribable liquid in the bottle into Princess Xiaozhu's mouth. The air was filled with the smell of feces and rotting corpses. Everyone looked at the food that Ying fed into Princess Xiaozhu's mouth, and their expressions became extremely complicated. He really couldn't imagine what the princess had drunk. This taste was too indescribable. Cough, cough, cough. Suddenly, Princess Xiaozhu, who was on her last breath, coughed violently. The liquid in his mouth was also choked out, following her mouth and face, sliding down. The liquid was dark green and extremely thick. When it flowed out of Princess Xiaozhu's mouth, it almost stained half of her face. "What did you feed this princess? What is this smell?" Princess Xiaozhu let out a shrill roar. She wiped her mouth forcefully. He covered his nose in disgust. Just what was that smell? Why did her mouth feel like it was stuffed with a few balls of feces? "Princess, Your Highness." Ying heard her princess's voice, which had regained its vitality, and was so agitated that she was about to cry. Chapter 42-72. Ying hesitated for a moment before replying, It's the antidote." "Antidote?" Princess Xiaozhu's expression congealed as she suddenly thought of something. Her expression darkened as she looked at Yiqing Luo. "It's you. It's you, right? What did you feed this princess?" Yiqing Luo smiled, "I'm such a beautiful and pure lady, why would I lie? Look, aren't you detoxified now?" Princess Xiaozhu choked, and her face darkened. She was indeed detoxified. That weak and powerless feeling from before, as if he had lost all his strength, had gradually disappeared. She clenched her fists. The fist vibrated again. His strength had been restored. This meant that Yiqing Luo indeed didn't lie to her. But the smell of this antidote made her unable to not suspect if Yiqing Luo had done it on purpose. "Yiqing Luo." Princess Xiaozhu gritted her teeth as she spat out Yiqing Luo's name. He clenched his fists. Profound waves fluctuated. His eyes were filled with a whirlpool storm, as though it was going to swallow Yiqing Luo whole. In this surging atmosphere, Ren Jianming stood in the middle of the two women's gazes. It blocked their line of sight. He first looked at Princess Xiaozhu and said, "Your Highness, since eldest young mistress has given you the antidote and you are safe and sound, please let this matter go for my sake." Immediately following that, he looked at Yiqing Luo smilingly with a scorching gaze, "Eldest young miss, don't be afraid, even if I have to sacrifice the entire Ren family, I will definitely protect you." Saying that, he rubbed his hands as he leaned towards Yiqing Luo. "Brother Ming." These two obviously different attitudes caused Princess Xiaozhu's expression to turn even uglier. She stomped her feet fiercely, looking at Ren Jianming's fawning look towards Yiqing Luo, her face flushed red with anger. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream. Ren Jianming had yet to get close to Yiqing Luo. A streak of fiery red flashed before his eyes. He felt a sharp pain in his head. It was the battle pet that could talk. Everyone's gaze immediately fell on Ren Jianming's head, the red bird that was using its sharp beak to poke Ren Jianming's head. Like a chicken pecking at rice, the bird kept poking at it. Ren Jianming screamed in pain.
You pervert. How dare you covet my people? I'll peck you to death. Peck you to death. I also want to peck your eyes. Ren Jianming was infuriated. He raised his hand and grabbed the top of his head. The palm wind carried a sharp and profound light. He directly grabbed Qi Yan's wings. Qi Yan struggled a few times but was unable to break free. A few cries came out of its mouth. Then, she immediately used her mouth to kiss Ren Jianming's hand. Qi Yan. Yi Qing Luo saw Qi Yan being grabbed by Ren Jianming and stretched out her hand to snatch it. Ren Jianming moved sideways, avoiding Yi Qing Luo's outstretched hand, holding Qi Yan's two little wings, shaking it. This kind of disobedient war pet, what's the use of it? I will give you a better battle pet some other day. His words were filled with killing intent. Killing intent towards Qi Yan. Qi Yan's mouth cried a few more times, its red eyes widened, full of stubbornness, and kept struggling. Ren Jianming's gaze fell on Qi Yan's face, snorted disdainfully, so it's a useless war pet, it doesn't even have bird claws, and can't fight. Ha, other than being able to talk, I'm afraid it's just a useless broken bird. His 5 fingers suddenly tightened. He squeezed Qi Yan tightly in his palm. Chapter 42-73. Clang, Qi Yan's wings fluttered even more violently. His little head swayed wildly, trying to grab Ren Jianming's hand. But, as the murderous intent in Ren Jianming's eyes intensified, the strength of Qi Yan's fluttering also weakened. It was just a few breaths' time. Yi Qing Luo saw Ren Jianming's 5 fingers tightening. Her eyes shot out a piercingly cold glint. Her body knocked away Gu Yun who was blocking in front of her. She pounced towards Ren Jianming. When the young lady pounced over, she brought along a unique fragrance of a young lady, faintly smelling of faint medicinal fragrance. Ren Jianming's mind swayed. He subconsciously stretched out his hand, trying to catch the young lady who pounced over. The other hand, which was clasping Qi Yan's body, also loosened. Qi Yan took the opportunity to break free from Ren Jianming's restraint. At the same time, Ren Jianming's hand, which was stretched out towards Yi Qing Luo, suddenly heard a "kacha" sound. Ren Jianming gave a muffled groan. An intense pain, from the wrist directly spread to the whole body. Between the breath, a fragrant breeze brushed past. Immediately, he saw that red-robed young lady, hugging that struggling bird in her arms. This series of actions. It was just a blink of an eye. Qi Yan, how are you? Yi Qing Luo lowered her head, looking at Qi Yan in her arms. Who am I? How could I possibly be in trouble? Qi Yan's voice was obviously strained, but his mouth still had to put up a brave front. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips, slender as jade fingers, gently stroked Qi Yan's furry little head. Between her slightly drooping brows, a sinister cold arc slowly swept past. She suppressed her voice, long and narrow eyes raised, like a blooming poppy, coquettish, and exuding a suffocating charm. Qi Yan, want revenge? The young lady's voice, deep and bewitching. Clear and melodious, but it made the surrounding air seem to condense a few degrees. Qi Yan's eyes lit up, yes. Yi Qing Luo's smile deepened, her peripheral vision faintly glanced at Ren Jianming's direction. All right. Brother Ming. Princess Xia Zhu, who had recovered her strength, suddenly rushed over and hugged Ren Jianming's arm. Her worried voice contained a tinge of sobbing. What happened to your hand? Does it hurt? Ren Jianming frowned, but he did not push Princess Xia Zhu away. He silently withdrew the hand that Princess Xia Zhu was hugging and placed it on his other arm, which was still in pain. With a "kacha" sound, the bones were set. Ren Jianming's face turned pale, but he didn't show any other emotions. After setting the bones, he shook his hand and his gaze was glued to Yiqing Luo. Eldest young miss is really ruthless. If anything happens to my hand, eldest young miss will have to take responsibility. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she hugged Qi Yan and squinted at Ren Jianming. Her rosy lips curled up into a mysterious smile. Ruthless. There are even fiercer ones. Do you want to try? The girl's light voice carried a trace of coldness. As her words fell, Yi Zichen's expression changed. There was even a gust of cold wind blowing around them. The girl's waterfall-like black hair danced in the wind. Her fiery red dress was also burning like a raging flame. It further accentuated the young girl's devastatingly beautiful face, adding a bit of unattainable holiness. Ren Jianming was almost mesmerized by her. His eyes were filled with thick lust. As long as it's bestowed by eldest young miss. This young master is willing to die of pain. This kind of sweet words, Ren Jianming could say it casually. That gaze, that expression, that tone. He was clearly a lecherous hedonistic son of a rich family. Chapter 4274. Brother Ming. Don't. Princess Xia Zhu didn't give up as she stretched out her arms to hug Ren Jianming. Before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by Yiqing Luo's voice. Really? How can I believe Mr. Ren's words? Ren Jianming's eyes lit up as he strode towards Yiqing Luo. How would eldest young miss believe me? Princess Xia Zhu threw herself into his arms. Coincidentally, she missed her target. She staggered a few steps, and if it wasn't for Yuing who supported her in time, she would have fallen onto the ground. However, Ren Jianming seemed as though he didn't notice what was happening behind him. In his eyes, he could only see Yiqing Luo alone. Brother Ming. Princess Xia Zhu bit her lips in grievance, not allowing her tears to flow down. At this moment, Ren Jianming's eyes were indeed only filled with Yiqing Luo alone. When he reached Yiqing Luo, his shoulders paused as he looked at her with a fiery gaze. Eldest young miss. The smile on Yiqing Luo's lips turned a little strange. But Ren Jianming, who was mesmerized by her beauty, didn't see it. Just as he was about to stretch out his hand to hug Yiqing Luo, suddenly, his face turned pale. His forehead was covered with beads of sweat. His body twitched as he curled up into a ball and fell onto the ground. Ah! Ah! Ren Jianming groaned in pain. His body felt as though there were numerous sharp needles piercing into his internal organs and limbs. Just a slight movement. Like a sharp blade, it cut a huge wound in his body. In fact, he could even feel the viscous liquid surging within his body. Pain. Heart-wrenching pain. The pain was unbearable. Ren Jianming had never suffered such torment since he was born. He fell onto the ground, twitching. Brother Ming. When Princess Xia Zhu heard Ren Jianming falling onto the ground, she couldn't care less about the anger in her heart as she screamed and dashed towards Ren Jianming. Ren Jianming fell, causing the surrounding crowd to fall into a state of panic. Brother Ming, Brother Ming. Princess Xia Zhu had just stretched out her hand to touch Ren Jianming's face when her wrist was gripped tightly by a force. The strong force almost broke Princess Xia Zhu's wrist. When Yuing saw Princess Xia Zhu's red hands, she immediately wanted to help. However, Princess Xia Zhu stopped him. This was the first time Brother Ming had taken the initiative to hold her hand. She didn't want to lose the chance to be intimate with Big Brother Ming just like that. Ren Jianming. Due to the intense pain all over his body, he had long since lost his rationality. At this moment, he grabbed Princess Xia Zhu's wrist tightly because he wanted to release the pain in his body. First Miss. What have you done to Mr. Ren? Yuing raised her head and stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo hugged Qi Yan as she stood there quietly, facing Yu Ying's question. Her lips curled into a cold smile. Didn't he say that he was willing? Then let me see how long his willingness can last. You bitch. Brother Ming would never be willing to be with you. Hand over the antidote. Hand it over. Princess Xia Zhu roared hysterically. Yiqing Luo smiled as her brows were filled with calmness. Really? Then why don't you ask him if he is willing to bear this kind of pain? Ren Jianming, who was in so much pain that he lost his rationality, didn't know why, but he heard Yiqing Luo's words. He gripped Princess Xia Zhu's wrist tightly. Chapter 4275. Yes. This young master, for eldest young miss, is willing. When he spat out the last 4 words, Ren Jianming was in so much pain that his entire body was twitching. Princess Xia Zhu only felt that her heart was pierced by a sharp knife, dripping with fresh blood. The pain was unbearable. She stared at the man who was in so much pain that his tears couldn't stop falling. It was painful. Heartache. Why, she loved Brother Ming so much. But he didn't even give her a glance. Your Highness. Yu Ying held on to Princess Xia Zhu's shoulder with heartache, as she comforted her softly. This is young Master Ren's own choice. Your Highness, let's go back to the palace. Stay here any longer. It would only hurt Princess's heart. This was the first time Yu Ying saw Ren Jianming being so persistent towards a lady. No. This princess is not going back. Princess Xia Zhu bit her lip so hard that her lips started to bleed. Her eyes were red as she stared at Ren Jianming in a daze. This princess wants to accompany Brother Ming. He will know that only this princess loves him the most. Ha! A clear sneer entered their ears. Xia Zhu stared with her scarlet eyes as she looked towards the direction of the voice. When she saw the face of the sneer clearly, Xia Zhu's face instantly darkened. What are you laughing at? Yiqing Luo didn't answer her, only giving an ambiguous smile. From Xia Zhu's angle, she could see clearly that the young lady's pair of icy cold eyes was filled with a trace of coldness without any warmth. Her spine suddenly felt a chill, as if there was an icy cold snake winding around her. Immediately after, she saw Yiqing Luo slowly opening her arms. That blazing bird in her arms slowly fluttered its wings, circling around Yiqing Luo for one round. Go, Qi Yan. Peck his eyes out. The young lady's smile was sweet, but the words that came out from her mouth made one's heart turn cold. Qi Yan raised its little head as it cried out. Its little body was like a fireball as it charged towards Ren Jianming. How dare you! Xia Zhu immediately pounced forward, blocking in front of Ren Jianming. Qi Yan sneered as it fluttered its wings, causing a gust of wind blowing directly towards Xia Zhu's face. Instantly, that indescribable smell which was fed into Xia Zhu's mouth instantly spread out. Scarlet Flame's small body suddenly drilled. His sharp beak was aimed accurately at Ren Jianming's eyes. Wait! Yu Ying suddenly cried out anxiously. She immediately supported her princess and raised her head to look at Yiqing Luo, eldest young miss. Today's matter is all because of the personal enmity between Her Majesty and you, and has nothing to do with Mr. Ren. If we want to settle it, we should settle it in the most reliable and fair way. This shout was loud and clear. This made Qi Yan stop his movements. It raised its head and looked at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as a glint flashed past her eyes. Personal enmity. I have just arrived at the Heaven Realm, do I know her? What personal grudge? Yu Ying's complexion sank, and her lips squirmed, but she couldn't utter a single word for a long time. On the other hand, Princess Xia Zhu straightened her back after hearing Yu Ying's words and looked at Yi Qing Luo fearlessly. It's this princess who deliberately found trouble with you. It's this princess who has enmity with you. Although today's matter was provoked by this princess, but there must be a solution to the matter of you poisoning this princess and the second young master of the Ren family. Chapter 4276. Princess Xia Zhu and Ying exchanged glances and hurriedly continued, "You have Bone Lord's protection, so I can't kill you. Then I can only choose a compromise." She paused as her gaze gradually turned ruthless. "Let's have a fair competition that won't hurt ourselves." Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed as a glint flashed past. She had roughly guessed their plan. The next moment, Princess Xia Zhu's gaze fell onto Qi Yan. Her gaze turned cold as she pointed to Qi Yan. "Let's use both our battle pets to battle." The moment she said that, it made the surrounding crowd drew in a cold breath. Princess Xia Zhu really dares to say that. That red bird. Although it can speak, but its battle power is too weak. It doesn't have any battle ability at all. Its claws seem to be damaged. How can a battle pet with no battle ability possibly fight against Princess Xia Zhu's battle pet? Princess Xia Zhu's battle pet. I've heard that when Princess Xia Zhu was 13 years old, the Emperor gathered hundreds of elite cultivators to head to Heavenly Beast Mountain to capture a god-grade magical beast. Its battle power is extremely ferocious. Isn't Princess Xia Zhu bullying others? Previously, when Princess Xia Zhu saw that eldest Miss Gu's battle pet could speak, she wanted to take it by force. Now when she saw that eldest Miss Gu's battle pet was a battle pet without any battle power, she thought of this idea. Wasn't this obviously digging a pit for Yi Qing Luo? Because, based on their identities, it was destined that this battle had to be fought. If Yi Qing Luo rejected, that was to reject Princess Xia Zhu's request for peace. Which meant to go against the royal family till the end. Because the excuse that Princess Xia Zhu used was because of their identities, only two battle pets could ensure that both parties wouldn't get hurt, and at the same time give an explanation. If Yi Qing Luo accepted. What a joke. A battle pet without any battle power. How could it go against a god-grade magical beast? Princess Xia Zhu's battle pet raised its claws and that bird would become a meat patty all right. Moreover, if she lost, she would lose the Gu residence's reputation. Anyway, no matter what Yi Qing Luo chose, it wouldn't benefit her at all. Princess Xia Zhu, you're going too far. Gu Yun pursed her lips and looked displeased. Princess Xia Zhu sneered and looked down at the man who was twitching in pain. Going too far. Isn't eldest Miss going too far? He poisoned her and forced her to consume the antidote with that smell. Right now, she could feel that her body was covered with the smell of decay. And elder brother Ming, I don't know what kind of poison that bitch gave brother Ming to cause him to be in so much pain. Since that bitch used such a despicable method and was so overbearing. Then don't blame me for using underhanded means to protect brother Ming. Apparently, Princess Xia Zhu had long forgotten that right from the start, she was the one who stirred up trouble and it was her who had the murderous intent towards Yi Qing Luo which led to Yi Qing Luo's retaliation. Lady. Gu Yun was worried. Her battle pet is a divine-level combat bear beast. She can't fight. If they fought, it was to push Qi Yan to the road of death. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly and her gaze fell on Qi Yan. Her charming eyes were filled with a serene light. She couldn't tell her current emotions. Qi Yan's ability was obviously sealed by the barbaric Bloodbone King. The current Qi Yan was just an ordinary pet. Chapter 4277. But, based on Qi Yan's character, it couldn't not fight. As expected. The next moment, Qi Yan, which was hovering above Ren Jianming, flew back to Yiqing Luo's side. I'll fight. When Qi Yan said these two words, its red eyes shone with a resolute light. It was one of the 4 sacred beasts, vermilion bird. There were even people who bullied it. How could it admit defeat? Yiqing Luo didn't reveal a surprised expression, as her expression was very calm. Are you sure? Sure. Qi Yan raised its long neck. You're the person I'm protecting. If they want to bully you, they have to see if I agree or not. Little Qi Yan's words were extremely arrogant. Hearing it saying, you're the person I'm protecting, Yiqing Luo's brows softened. She faced Qi Yan and slowly raised her hand. Qi Yan fluttered its wings as its little body fell into her palm. The young lady's slender fingers gently caressed Qi Yan's head. Little by little, the tip of his finger gently brushed her forehead. Qi Yan squinted its red eyes comfortably. It felt that along with the young lady's caressing action, its body seemed to be wrapped by a warm current which was very comfortable. It hadn't had the time to think carefully. Yiqing Luo's clear voice rang softly, if you want to fight, then go ahead and fight. I'll bear all the consequences. Her voice was clear and melodious. But it inexplicably gave it a huge confidence. Qi Yan's eyes seemed to be releasing a raging flame. Jumping with joy, like a fire spirit. Eldest Miss. Gu Yun's expression tightened when she heard Yiqing Luo's words and immediately cried out, you can't fight. You really can't fight. She really couldn't understand. Eldest Miss was obviously clear. Qi Yan's claws were not only corroded. It had no fighting ability at all. Bone Lord placed Qi Yan by Eldest Miss's side, just to let Qi Yan chat with Eldest Miss to relieve her boredom. How could a small Qi Yan be a match for a battle-type god-grade magical beast? It wasn't that Gu Yun was boosting other people's morale and diminishing her own, but the truth was as such. She clutched her sleeves tightly and continued anxiously, Eldest Miss, this servant has already sent a message to the Gu residents. Gu Jun will definitely think of a way to protect Eldest Mississippi. Eldest Miss doesn't need to accept Princess Xia Zhu's challenge. Why not? Qi Yan glared at Gu Yun. I can protect my own people. Are you looking down on me? As it spoke, it fluttered its wings excitedly. He even shook his head excitedly. Then, without waiting for Gu Yun to speak, with a whooshing sound, it flew into the sky. Then, it spun in the air like a ball of raging fire and stopped in front of Princess Xia Zhu. Come. Call out that useless battle pet of yours. Qi Yan's clamor was very arrogant. The way it flapped its little wings in midair looked comical and ridiculous. Princess Xia Zhu's face was livid. She stared at the little thing that was clamoring in front of her and curled her lips coldly. You overestimate yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, a tyrannical aura burst forth from her body. Endless dark force shot into the sky. Bang! There was a deafening explosion. Everyone felt the ground shaking for a moment. Immediately following that, their eyes were covered by a black shadow. Only to see by Princess Xia Zhu's side. A huge object which was as tall as a house appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Its huge body occupied more than half of the space. Chapter 4278. The huge beast's brown fur was like an indestructible armor, firmly protecting its huge body. That was a bear. A huge bear beast. The moment it appeared, it roared. Roar, 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 while roaring. Those two thick claws were raised up high. The ground cracked and shook incessantly. Xia, Princess Xia Zhu's Xiong Badian, has appeared. The crowd looked at the bear beast in astonishment, their eyes were filled with shock and amazement. This was a god-grade magical beast. A battle-type bear beast. One strike was equivalent to 10 sage mystic to god mystic realm cultivators. They had heard of it before. Someone had attempted to kidnap the emperor's most beloved princess Xia Zhu and sent out 10 god mystic realm assassins. Among them, there was one whose profound grade had already reached the god mystic realm, peak of 8th grade. But he was still smashed into meat paste by this battle-type bear beast named Xiong Badian. It showed how terrifying this battle pet was. The talismans were all summoned. Princess Xia Zhu was full of confidence as she arrogantly raised her chin, putting on a superior expression as she looked at Yiqing Luo, eldest young miss of the Gu residence. This princess is magnanimous and can give you a chance to admit defeat. As long as you hand over Brother Ming's antidote and sincerely apologize to this princess will be merciful and let you off. The current situation. The battle between the battle pet and the battle pet. Yiqing Luo could not interfere nor could she secretly poison it. Yiqing Luo had no chance of winning at all. That useless bird which could speak human language would definitely die. Thinking of this, the expression on Princess Xia Zhu's face became more and more complacent. He, this beast will give you a chance to admit defeat. Kneel down and sincerely apologize to this beast will be merciful and forgive you too, blind master and servant. In terms of mouth, other than Yiqing Luo, Qi Yan didn't lose to anyone else. In front of one of the 4 sacred beasts, a vermilion bird sacred beast, to use a small god-grade magical beast to act cool. What a big face. Even if its power was damaged and its beast energy was sealed. But did it really think that vermilion bird sacred beast had an undeserved reputation? Xia Zhu, who was choked by a bird's low laughter, her face instantly turned gloomy as her venomous gaze fiercely cut Qi Yan. This useless bird was as disgusting as its master. When Xiong Badian subdued it, then she would pull out its tongue. Let's see how arrogant it was. Xia Zhu and Yuing supported Ren Jianming and retreated behind Xiong Badian. Then, he ordered, Xiong Badian, kill it. Roar! Xiong Badian let out a roar as he waved his thick bare paws. It was a huge, battle-type bear beast. One was a useless bird beast that was the size of 2 palms and did not have sharp claws. There was no chance. Immediately, someone laughed out, Ling bird, Ling beast, Xiong king, as long as Xiong Badian slaps down, do you think that bird can survive? The disparity in strength is too great. I really don't know what the young miss of the Gu residence is thinking. Why must she send her little pet to its death? He's not willing to apologize, nor is he willing to let the matter rest. He can only push his pet out to die. I feel sorry for that bird. Even if it's a useless bird, it's still a rare breed which can speak human language. It's better to keep it by her side and chat with her to relieve her boredom. Her master didn't express anything, what's the use of feeling heartache? Chapter 42-79. Towards the surrounding people's gazes and various speculations. Yiqing Luo didn't have any change in her emotions. Her expression was calm and there wasn't much change in her eyes. She didn't look at anyone else. Just like that, she looked at Qi Yan without blinking. Only Gu Yun, who was closest to Yiqing Luo, could tell. The young lady's expression was calm. But in the depths of her charming eyes that gazed deeply at Qi Yan, she hid her concern for Qi Yan. Anne. The young lady's fists were clenched tightly under her sleeves. How could she not care about Qi Yan? She cared more than anyone else. The pain she was suffering right now was deeper than anyone else. Looking at Yiqing Luo in this state, Gu Yun's heart inexplicably surged with a feeling of heartache. Inexplicably, she wanted to believe. That the young lady had her reasons for doing this. She would absolutely not allow Qi Yan to get hurt. Bam! Just at this moment. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion erupted in front of them. The profound waves spread out at this moment. They were like turbulent waves, surging layer upon layer. The surroundings instantly exploded, pieces of shrapnel flying in all directions. Dust and profound wave curled up in spirals. Everyone could only vaguely see that enormous Xiong Badian waving its arms. A strange roar was coming out from its mouth. Everyone's ears were buzzing from this roar. Someone clicked his tongue. Look, when a god-grade magical beast unleashes its might, it's really extraordinary. No wonder it's Princess Xia Zhu, to be able to own such a powerful god-grade magical beast. That useless bird is going to suffer. Wouldn't it be in trouble if it met that kind of master? Everyone looked at that awe-inspiring Xiong Badian enviously, as their mouths were also praising Xiong Badian. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "No, no. Quickly look over there." This tone seemed as though he had seen something unbelievable, as his voice was trembling from the shock. Everyone looked towards the direction of the voice. Instantly, shock, astonishment, disbelief appeared on everyone's faces. The dust and profound wave was blown away by the strong wind, revealing the indistinct figure of a huge bear beast. But what made everyone stunned was what they saw just now, was Xiong Badian roaring and waving his arms. It was not Xiong Badian who was displaying his beast might. Instead, waving its thick bare paws, it scratched the bird on top of its head that looked like a ball of fire. Yes, scratching. It was scratching and slapping wildly. The roar coming from his mouth was a warning roar. The bird that was looked down upon by everyone and had no combat power at all flapped its wings and dodged Xiong Badian's paw again and again. Moreover, it was done in the most cunning way possible. Her posture was very elegant. It was as if he was strolling in the air, relaxed and leisurely. "This is, that useless bird, played with him. Xiong Badian couldn't catch a useless bird." This was what everyone was thinking. In their imagination, Xiong Badian should have directly slapped that useless bird into meat paste. Or he could turn the useless bird into a new toy. This was completely different from what they had imagined. There was such a huge disparity in strength. The result was actually unexpected. Obviously, Xiong Badian also noticed this. It roared more and more fiercely. Chapter 4280. As a beast, he had a natural sense of danger. Xiong Badian could feel an extremely strong sense of danger from the other party's small body. If the other party didn't die, it would be the one to die. It couldn't tell where its perception came from. It only knew that when it looked into the bird's eyes, every strand of hair on its body stood up subconsciously. Xiong Badian's beast eyes became more and more ruthless. The roar in his throat became more and more ferocious. "You ugly monster, you're so ugly, and you still have the nerve to be a human's war pet." Qi Yan flapped its wings and shouted. Xiong Badian growled, raised his feet and stomped hard on the ground. His huge body soared into the air. It was like a towering mountain, crashing straight towards Qi Yan. So what if it can fly? Break its wings and see how it can fly. The anger in Xiong Badian's chest had already boiled to the extreme. When the thick bare paw slapped down on Qi Yan, it gathered a brown beast power. The beast light twisted out crazily. It turned into a sharp blade with a piercingly cold glint. The majestic pressure of the beast power condensed the surrounding air into ice. Xiong Badian, who soared into the air, used his body size to occupy almost the entire air. Qi Yan jumped high up in the air. and the majestic pressure of the beast power poured down. When she flapped her wings, it was as if there was something heavy pressing down on her wings. It was extremely difficult to stir it up. This greatly reduced Qi Yan's flexibility. From the beginning, Qi Yan used its nimble body and small and exquisite figure to deliberately confuse Xiong Baishan's line of sight, while avoiding Xiong Baishan's attack. At the same time, he quickly used his sharp beak to poke Xiong Baishan's weakest point. For example, eyes. And then use it to arouse its anger. Once Xiong Badian lost his mind, it had a chance to take advantage of it. But now, Xiong Badian used his majestic beast power to directly seal its actions. At the same time, Xiong Badian growled. The thick bare paws and sharp claws shone with a cold light. It suddenly melted into Qi Yan's body, the energy of the brown beast power cut through the sky. Qi Yan's crimson eyes flashed. It flapped its wings fiercely. The heavy pressure made it extremely difficult for it to breathe. This time, that bird is dead for sure. The previous useless bird was a fluke. How can a battle pet that has no beast aura or combat abilities withstand the pressure of a beast at the divinity level? Some people marveled at Xiong Baishan's bestial might. There were also some who took advantage of the situation and continued to smear Yi Qing Luo's name, like master, like war pet. You've already lost to me, yet you're still so arrogant. Without any strength, you only know how to brag with your mouth. A sentence of ridicule, and those voices of discussion, came into the ears of Qi Yan. At the bottom of Qi Yan's heart, he felt inexplicably irritated. The heavy pressure on its body made it even more irritated. Bang! The bear paw landed. The sound of the explosion was like a clap of thunder. At the same time, the ground began to spread out in all directions like a dense spider web. The speed at which it flapped its wings became faster and faster. When the bear paw fell, it flew out of the attack range of the bear paw. However, the majestic and dignified beast power shockwave sent Qi Yan flying. Qi Yan somersaulted several times in midair. After crashing into a huge ancient tree, it followed the ancient tree and rolled to the ground. Qi Yan. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.